350,000 euros. The vessels will be paying license fee to the Gambia. The agreement also includes a total of 41 vessels, namely 21 Sinas, 10 pole and line vessels, and 3 deep-sea water trawlers. The objectives, both annual and multi-annual, to be achieved over time with a view to developing responsible and sustainable fishing activities, taking into account the priorities expressed by the Gambia in its national policies relating to having an impact on the following areas. 1. Support and management measures for fisheries, aquaculture and artisanal fisheries. 2. Sanitary quality management with a view to developing export capacities. 3. Fisheries monitoring, control, and surveillance, and fight against illegal and unreported and unregulated fishing. 4. The development and strengthening of scientific capacity in the field of fisheries. 5. Measures to protect fragile ecosystems or ecosystems that have made a significant contribution to the health of stocks, such as the establishment and management of marine protected areas. There is a joint committee that sits annually to look at the terms of the agreement and review reports on activities, which a member of the National Assembly will be part of the joint committee. Also, as part of the agreement, a Gambian is employed to be part of the team in the vessels to be monitoring and giving feedback to the authorities whether wrong fishes are caught other than the tuna and hake. In the agreement also, if the union fishing vessels in the Gambia exceeds the annual reference tonnage indicated, the total amount of the annual financial contribution shall be increased by 50 euros for each additional ton scored. Based on the discussions the Honorable Minister have with the Select Committee on Environment, Sustainable Development and NGO Affairs, the benefits the Gambia will be gaining in this agreement is huge. And this is one of the best agreements the country ever had. The agreement will boost the economy, create employment, and also experience, so that when the 6 years agreement is over, Gambians will be trained to be able to take up the fishing activities. Honorable Speaker, before I end this report, I must recognize the effort of my able committee members and plus all other members who join us to discuss this important fisheries agreement. We are joined by our colleagues who contributed in no small measure, and they assisted us greatly in arriving at this point. Mention should be also made with regards to the Honorable Minister for his leadership dexterity, as well as his able technicians in the person of Dr. Banja for his intellectual pedigree. We thank Dr. Banja and our able minister for their foresight, and we thank all those who came there to help us for their wonderful contributions. This could not have been possible without your sharp intellect and wonderful contributions. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I beg to take my seat.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable. Any seconder? Yes, Honorable Member for Nyanija.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I rise to second the motion and also wish to take the opportunity just to throw my weight behind it. This is an agreement, it's a sustainable fisheries partnership agreement between the Republic of the Gambia and the European Union. First of all, as highlighted in the report, this, I can say, is not a new agreement, and then it's not an agreement that the European Union have only with the Gambia only. it have this agreement, similar agreement with other countries like Senegal, Mauritania, just to name a few. But looking at the report, in summary, one will definitely know and be convinced in my thinking that we shouldn't waste time on this, just pass it, because definitely this is for the interest of the Gambia, especially the fishing sector. Not looking at the monetary gains or whatsoever that is attached to it, but look at it holistically. This agreement will specifically be on two types of, two species, that is tuna and the hake, of which we don't have the capacity to make the best use of them. So without this agreement, the Fisheries Department or the Ministry of Fisheries and Water Resources cannot guarantee us that these species will be there always and nobody will be able to catch them, definitely. We don't have the capacity, so if you don't have the capacity, others have the capacity to catch them, and also you have benefits from that. Definitely is something that is worth commendable from the ministry. And then looking at it, you see that 550,000 euros will be paid annually, and then fishing vessels will also pay their lancing and other stuff. And then the other important aspect of it, like every ship will have a Gambian from the Department of Fisheries who will be employed on the fish, who will serve as a monitor or supervisor. That one will be responsible of looking at the agreement in both sides, and that individual will be reporting back to the ministry whatsoever that transpired within the ship. And then that is definitely worth commendable also. Also, in the other aspect of it, if you look at the points highlighted, that is, it will increase the fisheries monitoring, control, and surveillance and fight against illegal and uninterrupted fishing. This, we lack capacity to do this in all aspects, I can say. So, going into this agreement will definitely help us boost in that area, because the European Union wouldn't want to see we have an agreement with them, and then also other illegal uninterrupted fishing happening without them being reporting. Definitely they will serve that purpose of protecting our waters from these illegal fishing. And then just to note that we have other fishing agreements with Senegal, but that is quite different from this one. That entails different package and different other aspect generally. Because if you look at it, the Gambia have a fishing agreement with Senegal under the Senegal-Gambia agreement, specifying on different species. And on this, every catch that they have, they will give the fishing sector 4 tons. And then these are the 4 tons. These 4 tons are the ones we use to serve the prison department, the police, whom you know that they are on duties, and also the army camps. So definitely that is completely a different thing. So I would be surprised if others are mixing these two. This is a completely different agreement from that of the Senegal. So Honorable Speaker, without much ado, definitely, in my own thinking, and then generally, I think this is an agreement that we should all embrace, and then applaud the ministry for coming up with this, and then for doing whatsoever the necessary requirements until it reaches this. So I will urge my all honorable colleagues in this honorable assembly to support this so that we can pass it for the better good of our citizenry and for the better good of the government. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It has been moved and seconded that this honorable assembly do consider the report of the National Assembly Select Committee on Environment, Sustainable Development, and NGO Affairs on the Sustainable Fisheries Partnership Agreement between the Republic of the Gambia and the European Union. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Honorable members who wish to take part in the debate may do so by raising their constituency tag. I will start with Honorable Member for Larikunda Sabigi. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And I will start by thanking the Select Committee on Environment for the job well done. When this bill was passed here, we will fight to the committee, and then I believe the committee have just do what we expect from them. Okay, I would like to throw my weight behind this motion, as in a simple reason that they say, there's clearly quoted, it says that these species are highly migratory and Gambia lacks the capacity to catch them. I think this alone is enough for one to be convinced that this motion should be accepted in this parliament here. The honorable member for Nyanija says that this agreement and the agreement between Gambia and Senegal, these are total two different things. We shouldn't have to mix the two. I think this is the right move on the right directions. But the few questions that I will have, so I want to ask them is that we are going to expect outcomes closely like up to around 900 euros, 900,000 euros. My question is, how do you, or where do you expect, where should we expect this money? Because I believe that this money should be invested back to the fishing communities so that we can develop this area and create more jobs for the young Gambia, people of the Gambia here. So that's my question. And then also, it says that if the catch exit, like if it increase, there will be an additional 50 euros. How are we going to monitor this area how are we going to say that these people have catch more and then we're going to charge them an additional 50 euros? Do you have a mechanism, or do you have any people who are going to monitor these people? Because that's very, very, very important. We need to put a mechanism, a robust mechanism in place so that we know how much are these people catching. So on that, Madam Speaker, all what I want to say is that I'm supporting this motion, and then all the rest of the Parliament also to support this motion. Thank you.
Honorable Member for Ilyasa.
Okay, thank you very much, Speaker. And I have gone through the motion, but what I have observed is that we will be given about 900,000 euro yearly. But if you look at closely, it means that they are paying us about 272.73 euro per ton. And if you combine in the government, there's only about $17,000. It means that yearly we are getting only about $35 million from the contract. And secondly, I want the Minister of Environment to give us more explanation. And also, how much are they going to pay the licensing to the Gambia government? Thank you.
Honorable Member for Serekunda.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the relation between the European Union and the Gambia is based on the Cotonou Accord. And the European Union has been a partner in terms of budget support as well as project support. It is important for us to understand that the relation between the Gambia and other countries must not only be based on dependence. There should be a move towards an equitable relation where there will be win-win and gains made by both partners. We are not supposed to enter into any agreement that is derogatory to our sovereignty, and we should enter into agreement that serves the interests of our people. In that sense, when we look at this agreement, it's not only the cost and benefit analysis we should look at, meaning that we should have weighed the number of tons that the European Union is going to gain during the time frame, and that would have required our committee to have invited a subject matter specialist that will concretely indicate the gains, financial gains, that will be made by these companies from the European Union. And that has not been done. So essentially, we are relying on common sense rather than fact to weigh the gain of this agreement. And this practice should really stop, Honorable Speaker. We should know that the purposes of having these committees is to be able to have a vantage point in terms of facts so that our decisions will be informed by facts. But looking at the agreement for its face value, I will say that Gambia is horribly disadvantaged. Horribly disadvantaged. Honorable Speaker, our ocean is the basis of the future survival of this nation. And our young people are now being deported from Europe. I'm receiving calls every day of the fear and the threat that they are being subjected to. And here we are, fishing vessels coming to our waters, and we are not negotiating that 50% of those who are going to work in those fishing vessels will be our citizens. How are we protecting the interests of our people? They will be deported here. What type of jobs are we going to give them? And we're giving them advantage to go and fish in our waters and take back the wealth and just give us pittance as contribution. Honorable Speaker, I do not see how that will benefit our nation and our people. When it comes to negotiation about interests, then our interest must be supreme. This is about interests. And therefore, those who proceed to negotiate this must ensure that we derive maximum benefit from this interest. And that will require proper cost and benefit analysis of those who are going to invest and see how we are going to balance it in terms of what they are going to give us that will be sustainable. How do we arrange that at the end of the contract we have trawlers? How do we arrange that our citizens will work in those vessels? How do we arrange that part of the catch and we'll quantify it and it will be in the agreement to be landed and processed so that the European Union will live to the Cotonou Accord of transferring knowledge, skills, and institutions that we can rely on to move forward. We are saying we have difficulty in benefiting from our waters. They should assist us gradually to develop our capacity to harness our fishing resources, to develop our capacity to have surveillance of our waters. But that should be embedded in the contract. So as far as I'm concerned, this contract, this agreement is still incomplete. And unless what I've said is done, the agreement is incomplete and should be renegotiated so that the benefits of our nation is properly secured. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Member for Fonyi Kansala.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I've been saying it, and I will keep saying it. I said the work of the Select Committee is the starting point, and it's now left to plenary to review it further, either accept or do the necessary amendments where necessary. Honorable Speaker, I looked at the second paragraph, the last sentence, where it reads, "These species are highly migratory, and the Gambia lacks the capacity to catch them." So I have a big question mark. Gambia lacking the capacity, what next? So these financial gains mentioned in the agreement, with the limits, I believe there is more to that, which of course I haven't seen highlighted in the report of the Select Committee. We cannot just say Gambia lacks the capacity. So Gambia lacking the capacity, that's the conclusion that we should go into the agreement. I think there is something further to that. What is the European Union thinking of building our capacities to a level where we are also able to catch the species, and if need be, we export them to the European country, or European countries rather. I believe this is something that the work of the Select Committee should have also highlighted. Again, on the third paragraph, Honorable Speaker, I saw it mentioned the agreement include a total number of 41 vessels in our waters. And the vessels have been categorized. How much out of the amount of money stipulated? For me, it's very, very insignificant, and it needs thorough review. If Gambia is definitely going to go into this agreement, and Gambia is going to be seen benefiting, I think there is need for a more review of this agreement. The composition of the committee have been highlighted. We will have a member of the National Assembly to be part of the team. It's also highlighted that a Gambian will be employed in every vessel to be monitoring and giving feedbacks. This is where our national duty takes center stage. We are going to be in the midst of people who are here to gain something from our waters. How committed and ready are we to make sure that any illegal activity that's happening in our waters, we are there to report, or we are even there to make a stop to it? That is also very important to whosoever is going to be in that position. Again, looking at where it's highlighted that our Gambians will be employed. Again, like the Honorable Member for Serekunda rightly mentioned, the statistics here would have been very important. It would have actually enriched the work of the Select Committee. But that statistical data is also missing. And again, in the second page, the second paragraph, where it is saying the last sentence, the total amount of the annual financial contribution shall be increased by £50 for each additional tons caught. 50, not to an individual, but to a country. For me, I don't believe this is something that one should even entertain. £50, 50 euros to be given to a state, not an individual. I believe the Select Committee must have come up with a figure far higher than this. Because if I am aware that all I am going to pay is 50 euro for an additional ton, I would be seeing going beyond what I am supposed to catch. Because knowing how insignificant 50 euro is to a vessel. I think the work of the Select Committee here also, something key is missing, which they should have definitely looked into. Honorable Speaker, I want to conclude by urging this National Assembly, through the Select Committee, to invite the Honorable Minister to submit for a thorough review of the fishing agreement between the Gambia and the Senegal rather, because there is nothing that Gambia is benefiting as far as that fishing agreement is concerned. I want to appeal that the Select Committee requests for that fishing agreement, make a thorough review of the agreement, and see how it could be reviewed, make the necessary adjustment so that Gambia as a country also benefits from this fishing agreement. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Jara Central. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma. Honorable Speaker, I have only two questions to ask to the Honorable Minister for Fisheries and Water Resources in respect to this fishing partnership agreement between the European Union and our motherland, the Gambia. Honorable Speaker, I would like the Honorable Minister for Water Resources and Fisheries to explain to this humble assembly as to how did they reach to these two sums, that is the 550,000 euro plus the 350,000 euro with EU. How did they reach to these two amounts? I want him to explain to this humble assembly. And the other question, Honorable Minister, I would like you to furnish us with is that, have your ministry conducted any study or research in respect to these fishing vessels, whether they will not have any effect on our other species that we have in our waters? Honorable Speaker, these were the two questions I have to ask for from the Honorable Minister to answer to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honorable nominated member, Ndeyasin. Thank you.
Thank you very Thank you very much, Ma. I think I also have questions. To me, I am concerned really, because if we are saying that we are not capacitized and we are allowing these vessels to come to our waters, they can do anything. So how do we know that this is what they are doing? How do we know that this is what not they are doing? So I think we should really try by all means to make sure that these people are doing the right thing. And you know that, I don't know, the type of fish that you are talking about, is it that we don't need them? Or do we want to throw them to some people? Because you know that fish is so expensive now. And we have our waters. I think the Gambia not being capacitized is what we should really run away from now. We should aim high. This is a Gambia. It's a country where you know that we can do a lot. We have our natural resources. The waters is what Allah gave us, so we can do a lot. So as we say that we are not capacitized, I think the first thing that we should have done was to let them tell us how they are going to do this. I don't know whether that has been done. But this also is another issue. The other issue is that how did you negotiate? Because these people, example, I am selling you this watch, and then you tell me that I am going to buy this watch for $50, and the watch is mine. So to me, I am concerned, really. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Jara West.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I think I start with the agreement, as alluded to by my colleague, that both sides are bound by the agreement we call the Cotonou Agreement. Both the European Union and the Gambia are party in that agreement, which we should put at the back of our mind. And coming back to the agreement, based on these two species, I want Honorable Minister to help the citizenry, because there was a lot of talk about this when the matter was first raised in the National Assembly here. People did not understand what this contract is about. Many people thought that they're just coming into the ocean and fishing. But to ourselves, before we meet as a committee, that was our confusion. But after knowing that, the contract is talking about only 2 types of fish, or 2 species in the ocean. That makes us a little bit comfortable. And we know that these are 2 different types that are not stationed at one place. They didn't belong to any nation. They are always traveling. Even those interested in catching them are following them wherever they go. They will not be catched if there is no agreement until they leave our territory, because these species are not stationary. They are moving all along. And the capacity also that the country needs to benefit from these 2 species is not with us. This gives us an encouragement that at least government can get something to be able to promote the capacity of our fishing sector so that we can do it by ourselves. These are some of the good things we find in the agreement. Provided that we can do it ourselves, and provided that these species are stationed in the Gambia, I think that's the time we can claim ownership. Yes, the water belongs to our country, but the 2 species we are talking about are mobile. They are not staying. You have this kind of fishes in the ocean. They did not stay at one place. So the trawlers that are after them will follow them wherever they go. That was one of our inquiries we made from the minister. That in the events that they come to our territory, without approving this agreement, how would you know that they are catching them or they are not? We see that to be able to monitor, we have to go in for this agreement so that we can have our monitors within their vessels to be able to know whether they are doing it or maybe other nationalities are there who are not within this agreement. That will help us to know whether they are catching this species or not. I think we have to put that at the back of our mind. Provided that the vessel has nobody representing the Gambia there. And to represent the Gambia there, we must have to have this agreement. Then it can be taken at any time without our knowledge. With these reasons, I personally agree to this agreement, that it is in the interest of the country. But the Ministry of Fisheries has to enlighten the citizenry. They have to know what exactly this country is about, this agreement is about. Because many people thought that they comes to catch any type of species in the river, when that is not the actual agreement. That is why you have so many comments against this agreement in the social media, because it was completely misunderstood. So I think the ministry has to take that challenge to make people understand that the agreement is not talking about all type of fishes in the ocean. It's talking about only 2 species that we, the Gambian, did not have the capacity to catch. That is the reason why we go in for the agreement. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Member for Janjambure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. For me, I would have thought in the agreement there would have been at least a page or so to indicate to us the 1987 agreement. What had the Gambia learned from that agreement when it was being executed, where we need to reinforce the setbacks we had, and based on that, come to the new one. But as of now, we don't know the 87 agreement, what Gambia had benefited from. And probably, maybe the team that went to negotiate had this at their back, at the back of their mind. But I would have thought at least there should have been a page in the agreement to say this and this was what had happened, and this was the way it went. The Gambia benefited from this. And my second point is, Madam Speaker, 41 vessels would be licensed, 41 vessels of different capacities. Do we have anywhere where it is stated at any one given time, this is the number of vessels that can be in our waters? Because you're talking of 28 schooners, 10 poles, and 3 deep-sea water trawlers. At any given time, are they all authorized to be in our waters at the same time? Or how much can be there at any given time? My third point is, in the event, within the year, the tonnage that is set aside it exceeds that, what is going to happen? Or, in the event there is less than what we estimated, what is going to happen? So these are some of my doubts, Mr. Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Nyani.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. I also alluded to my previous speakers, but notwithstanding, my question is, in any business there is profit or loss. So my doubt also goes towards my fellow former speaker. That is, they are saying the money to be paid is almost about 900,000 euro. But how about in the event they were not able to catch the number of tonnage they were expecting that yearly? Because it's something which is in the sea. You can get more or you can get less. But in the event the catch is reducing, whether they will still continue paying the yearly payment they're supposed to pay. So I think that's my doubt. And also, how did they arise to these figures? Because just giving a figure and you accept it because the money is huge, so you said, okay, it's fine. So, but let us not look on the monitoring term. But based on the calculation, even the number of tonnage they are adding to the number of tonnage they are supposed to catch, that 50 euro, at least it will be, they will encourage to catch more, because calculating that figure, based on my calculation, I think is on their advantage. So, but the technocrat can look at it very well, and the committee, so that they can able to know how much profit are we gaining. Because at the end of the day, why they came up with this amount, I know it is on their advantage. So with that note, I beg to take my seat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Tumana.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. I will first of all thank the Select Committee for the wonderful job that they have done. And coming to the agreement, I think, Madam Speaker, going to where the last paragraph is explaining, the agreement will boost the economy of this country. Looking into the agreement, first of all, is an agreement between the European Union and that of the Republic of the Gambia, and the agreement is based on 2 species of fish. And it has been clearly stated in these 2 leaflet papers that the species are highly migratory and the Gambia lack the capacity to catch them. I think in this vein, I the member for Tumana constituency, I am supporting this motion simply because we lack the capacity to catch these two species of fish in the ocean. So, and also when these fish are highly migratory. So, on that note, I add my value to it. And the second thing is create employment. Right now, all what we are crying in these chambers is employment, especially the youth employment in this country. Madam Speaker, if you still go by the leaflet, it is saying, why is it again? Also, as part of the agreement, a Gambian is employed to be part of the team in the vessel to be monitoring and giving feedback to the authorities whether wrong fish are caught, and then the tuna and hake. So in this vein, Madam Speaker, I think this thing is going to give us the capacity. After when these people leave, we can take over and monitor our ozones. 3, looking at the monetary aspect too, it is said yearly we will be receiving 550,000 euros, which is approximately to $30,800,000, and the other 350,000, approximately 19,600,000. So in 6 years' time, that will be $204,400,000. And the number of tonnage attached to this is 19,800 tonnages. Madam Speaker, I will still emphasize, when we lack the capacity to do this, and these fish are not only stationed in our country, they are on a migration. So within these 6 years, looking at the cost attached to it, the cost benefit attached to it, honestly, Madam Speaker, I wanted to support it. The few questions that I have is, one, when it indicated we do not have the capacity, now, how are we going to quantify the number of tonnage that these people are going to take outside from the country? That's my first question. 2, what quality is in this species of fish that have motivated the European Union to sign this agreement with the Gambia? And 3, is there any assessment or assessment done by the ministry to help us to know whether whether there will be any negative impact on the other species of fish found in our river? And last but not the least, in short, what other control mechanisms or monitoring and evaluation is the ministry putting in place to go after these people? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Opa Fuladu, honorable member.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to first of all confess that I am a stakeholder, a private stakeholder in this industry. So my intervention might be seen to be biased. Sorry, yes, thank you. My voice, yeah? Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. Say again? No, I cannot accuse myself, because I want to represent myself. I am a representative of the people, and here I think,
I usually have a problem with you and the honorable member for Yundum.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah, the tallness, yes. Yes. Madam Speaker, the reason is the agreement here before us is quite sensitive. And in as much as I think it's a good agreement, I think I will blame the ministry for not doing a good job in sensitizing the public. about this agreement. In this agreement, we are talking about two species of fish, which is tuna and hake. Hake can be caught by the sinners, the 28 sinners they mentioned, because they are not far from here. But tuna is way, way, way out there. The 3 deep sea trawlers they mentioned are the only ones now which has the capacity to be able to catch them. Madam Speaker, I have been in this industry since 2009, and I'm still struggling to even meet the required standards of the Gambia, let alone the EU. The Gambia has no capacity to either catch these fish or to even process them right now. In 2011, a South Korean company came to town. And some of them you might remember when they hired the Dobson, where the immigration used to be. They hired the whole building where their sailors were. And they had 38 trawlers. They were fishing this. They used to be in Ghana before they came to Gambia. But they chose Gambia because their processing fees were cheaper. They will catch this fish in Panama, bring it to the Gambia, process it here, and then take, send it back to US and the Asia because it's a high delicate fish. Tuna, we don't eat it here. We only buy it from the supermarkets, and very few people will either eat sardines than tuna because tuna is not as palatable to our culture as sardine is. We only buy them in cans in the supermarkets. So this fish, even if we catch it here, we cannot process it, and we don't use it now on our daily meals. So it's very highly migratory too. When they say migratory, it's because this is not a stock of fish that is in our waters permanently. They migrate from one country, part of the world to the other. And during the course of their migration, if they are caught within our rivers, which is 80 kilometers long, that is the time they would not record it as a fish that is caught within Gambia. But within these 80 kilometers, if they should go a meter outside that boundary, it's not our fish anymore. It's a Senegalese fish, because Senegalese now has the boundary up north towards Ndar and down south towards Guinea-Bissau in the Casamance region. So the fish is only our fish when they're within this 80 kilometer of our water. How do you call it now? I forgot the name. Yeah, our territory, water territories. Yeah. So, Madam Speaker, the agreement here, if we understand very well, it is to support the Gambia, build its capacity to be able to maintain our blue economy. Basically, to use our rivers to sustain our socio-economic development. So, in that respect, what EU and the Gambia has now agreed on is a 6-year contract for which they will pay us $550,000 a year from the EU, but another $350,000 from the vessels themselves to support our capacity building process. And Madam Speaker, is this a good deal or is not a good deal? We have to ask ourselves. We have to compare it to what? From Morocco down to, I think it's Djibouti, this agreement is agreed now between the EU and all the countries now within those coasts. So the only country they don't have agreement with now is the Gambia. And what that means is, if they start now fishing up north, as soon as they hit our territory, they should not dip off their nets until they finish our 80-kilometer length coastline. Okay, it's called coastline. And then they dip their nets back in, which they don't do anyway. As we speak now, not only the EU, but even the Chinese are overfishing in our waters. We have no control over it. So this IUU they're talking about, the illegal, unreported, and unregulated thing, will be addressed now within this agreement, because they will be there as our eyes and ears to make sure that nobody else who doesn't have agreement in the Gambia, with the Gambia, will be allowed to fish within that water, because they will be our surveillances. The other thing is, Madam Speaker, the reason why I said no, I am a stakeholder in this, because I started this business with producing ice in 2009 with the idea of building my capacity to eventually become a fish processing center to supply both the EU and our domestic or sub-region. But Madam Speaker, no, this is not possible because this is a very risky business. Time and time over again, I build sinners, give it to sellers who are mainly foreigners. And Madam Speaker, sometimes you spend over $100,000 on one trip. They go and come back empty. And I only want catfish. I don't want tuna or hake, only catfish. But they sometimes come back empty. So it means that that expense is lost now. So you have to recoup again and give them more capital to go back. So the agreement between Gambia, EU and Senegal, they are paying Senegal €1.20 per kilo. But the agreement they have with the Gambia, they're paying Gambia €1.39, 10 cents more than the competition. So in other words, from that point of view, in comparison to how much this money it represents, it's not a bad deal. The other issue is, each of these vessels will have 4 sailors on them, Gambia, to monitor, to record every tonnage that is caught within our waters. This will be a real-time reporting back to base to inform the stakeholders of how much catch they had caught in our waters. And it is highly possible that they will not even be able to catch these 3,300 tons. But should they do, they are willing to pay an extra €50 per ton on top of that. I would say this with a very open mind to know that we are negotiating. So anybody with a different view in negotiation, I'm not saying no. I mean, at the end of the day, that's the whole point. But we have to be also considerate of what are we comparing this agreement to. And to be quite honest with you, I think it's a very good agreement. And in this agreement, it's giving us €275,000 per year to help build capacities of people like me. Because it says very, very clearly here that they will support and management measures of the fisheries, agriculture, and international fisheries, but also the sanitary quality management with the view to develop export capacity. So hopefully one day we'll be in a position whereby we'll have enough processing centers in the Gambia, Gambian-owned processing centers, to be able to export fish into the EU. But right now, as we speak, not the Atlantic seafood, Atlantic seafood, not pelican seafood or rosamond have the capacity to do this, because the EU have banned the Gambia from importing because they lack the capacity and the required standards. So, Madam Speaker, on that note, I will give my blessings and support to this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Honorable Member for Woolly East. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that I have a reservation on this agreement from many fronts. First of all, we know that this is not the first time Gambia has agreement with the EU regarding fishing. Secondly, we know that this agreement is an old one, which was abandoned by the Gambia. So I believe the committee should have gone to find out the old agreement and to try to know why Gambia had refused the old agreement in the first place and compare it to this new agreement. But the information I have is that this is the old agreement that was abandoned by the old government, and this new government comes and agreed with it. Honorable Speaker, it is already mentioned that Gambia does not have capacity to catch the tuna and the hake. But the fact that we do not have the capacity to even catch those species gives me the opinion that we may not also have the capacity to actually monitor these vessels, these numerous vessels that are coming into our waters on a continuous basis. My understanding is that Europe has exhausted its species, this type of species in their waters. And they would ban fishing in their waters for a period of 6 months. And they will continue to do fishing in other countries to catch up with, to allow their water to accumulate the fish resources. That's one of the tactics being used. And the other understanding is that, contrary to what my honorable friend is saying, Morocco has abandoned this agreement because of the cost that they were giving to Morocco at one stage. And they renegotiated with Morocco and increased the payment from this 550 to 850,000 euros. And other amounts were also increased for them to have this agreement with Morocco. So that is an area we need to really focus on. I would have thought that I want to know whether the Gambia has gone to our neighboring countries that have this agreement with EU to know at what stage they are with those countries and how much they are paying to those countries, and what compared to what they are giving us and what benefits we are accruing from it, we'll be able to make the comparisons to know whether we should go for it or not. Honorable Speaker, I want to say that we don't have capacity to monitor. It requires a lot of training to have capacitized people that will be in those vessels to know what those ships are going to do in our waters, or will be doing in our waters. It is not just sitting, I said it here, when we are ratifying those agreements. We need real trained people who will know exactly what those ships are doing. Otherwise, they'll just be sitting there, they'll fill their vessel in various methods, and they will leave. And you'll not be able to know what exactly they are doing. So it requires a lot of training. So before we go into any agreement, we must make sure that we have those trained personnel to be able to go. Honorable Speaker, the second thing is we don't have a surveillance boat. The minister told us here that we do not have a surveillance boat. And we have 40-something vessels coming into our waters. You need not only 1 or 2 or 3, but you need several surveillance boats with trained personnel to be in the waters continuously to monitor what these vessels are doing, if indeed all of them are going to operate at the same time. Honorable Speaker, the $50 euro they are talking about additional this thing, that's illegal. No, they are saying if they do any illegal addition, that's what they are saying. Any additional illegal catch, tonnage, they give us 50 euros. That's an insult. You steal a ton of my fish. You are caught. You are asked to pay 50 euros. What is 50 euros? That is one tuna. That's just one tuna in the restaurant in Europe. And my understanding is, I want to ask this question, whether it is only tuna and hake, whether shrimps are not part of it, because my understanding is that it is including shrimps as well. No, I'm giving you what the information I got. So we need to look at that aspect as well. Honorable Speaker, I know that the EU is one of those regions that are really interested in the ecosystem. I mentioned it to you, Honorable Minister, here. The marine resources, how do you manage them, and so on. This tuna and hake they are talking about, they are traveling. My understanding is, from our interventions with your ministry, is that the more fishing is intensified in a fishing territory, the more the fish run away from that territory. Of our fishing zone, I believe that most of these species will begin to disappear and run away from danger. So I would buy the idea, if that would not be a problem for the ministry, to look into ways of renegotiating to see how best we can have a better deal than this one. Because this reservation that I have, especially paying 50 euros to us after illegally catching a ton of tuna, these are very expensive species. Tuna and hake and shrimps are very expensive species. So to catch a ton of that, only to come back to us and give us 50 euro, is giving them a leeway to go ahead and catch as much as they can, only to come back and give you 50 euros. So I am with the suggestion that this whole thing be renegotiated to get a better deal. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Banjul North.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Well, before you go on, can any honorable member move that we sit beyond 1 o'clock? Thank you. Kantora.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to move a motion that this assembly do sit beyond 1 o'clock.
Thank you. Seconder, Janjambure.
I rise to second the motion.
Thank you very much. It has been moved and seconded that this assembly sits beyond 1 o'clock. Those in favor, please say aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. We can now proceed. Banjul North, yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I don't oppose to agreements per se, including agreements of this nature. The EU has been collaborating with the Gambia, and that given the face value of what is presented to us, it appears that there are lots of advantages. But for me, I believe that as a country, any agreement that we enter into must be on the basis of win-win. We must ensure that even if what we are getting is less in terms of quantity with the other party, it can be seen from that angle that it is win-win. I am of the conviction, and I have been saying this on the floor of this August Assembly, that we are not taking advantage of our marine resources, our fish and fishery resources. We have them in abundance. Of course, the abundance is not going to be permanent, given the activities, industrial activities that are taking place. And even if this agreement is to be implemented, we're going to put pressure and may result in overfishing. So I want to start from that premise that the agreement should be a win-win for the Gambia. They're talking about Gambia lacking the capacity So therefore, the other party has capacity to come and take advantage of our incapacity or our lack of capacity. But I believe if we recognize that disadvantage, the interest and objective of this government should have been how to ensure that this agreement helps us improve on that capacity. I'm not of the belief that since we don't, the fish that we're talking about, the species, that is the tuna and hake, are migratory, and then they are not fish that we normally consume in this country. But you can derive income from it. That's the basis, even if you don't consume it. You can engage into economic activity that can derive revenue for this country. So that's the basis, irrespective of whether it is part of our menu, local menu, or not. It is talking about employing young Gambians to a vessel. Of course, our interest is, and it's also a concern, that is we need employment for our young people. But I believe even at that front, at that level of creating employment, the agreement could have offered more in terms of employment. Not only having 4 on a vessel to be doing inspection, to be doing surveillance. The agreement could have factored processing. Whatever catch they may have, the processing not to be done on the vessels or elsewhere, but in the country here. A factory could have been created to that effect onshore in the Gambia here that would be processing whatever catch from those vessels. I believe what the committee should have done is that when this motion was brought before us, we felt that there's a technical element in it, and it would be advisable if it is treated by a committee, the technical committee for that matter, that is the select committee, before plenary deliberates on it. I would have expected that, of course, you need the ministry, officials from the ministry to come and give you advice from the perspective of the negotiations they have made on behalf of the government. But I don't think anything stops our committees, in general, from inviting expert advice as well. I think this can be a practice now. It's not that we don't trust what our officials from government are telling us, but we want to be objective in our decisions. There's nothing wrong with us inviting independent opinion, expert opinion. Apart from us, because we also can use common sense, we also have ideas about how these things go. But in addition to that, expert advice could have been invited as well. Perhaps we would have, been given more information from that perspective in terms of advantages and disadvantages. Like I said, EU has been collaborating with Gambia. It was cited that this is not the first time such an agreement was before Gambia and the EU. I'm not sure whether the first one was even brought before the Assembly. But this is not the first time, so it would have been very interesting if efforts were made to make inquiries as to what happened. At least this would have, assisted us in coming to an objective conclusion that will serve the interest of this country. Like I said, win-win. Because case in point is the agreement with Senegal. Gambia has an agreement, fishing agreement in Senegal. Unfortunately, the agreement was not brought before us, but we were told by the Honorable Minister that Gambia is free to fish in Senegalese territorial waters. Senegal is also free to fish in Gambian territorial waters. But Gambia does not have the capacity, so Gambia is not benefiting. You cannot call this a win-win arrangement. And I have been saying this, and the Honorable from Kansala is also saying the same thing, that I have been saying that there is need for us to revisit that agreement with Senegal. Although that is not before us, but this relationship between Senegal and Gambia is so delicate that we must do everything to preserve it. We are one people, two nations. So therefore, the agreement, as I see it, is not on the basis of win-win. We don't have the capacity. So that is not an arrangement to our advantage. Coming back to the EU one, like I said, this could have been factored, that in terms of creating employment, we should have ensured that whatever catch that is coming from these vessels is processed in the Gambia. In fact, this would even help us in our surveillance. We would have known the quantity of fish that these vessels catch from our waters. This could have been factored in. The Cotonou Agreement was cited here, that the lack of capacity is recognized between the ACP countries and the EU. So therefore, the economic agreements that we really negotiate ensures that they can derive benefits from resources, natural resources that we have in our countries. But that the objective is also that it's not going to be to our disadvantage. It has to be a win-win. It has to factor building capacity. Building our capacities. It is stated in the agreement that capacity building is part of it. So what stops the government, in fact Gambia, in the first place, from asking the EU that we want support from the EU to help us acquire vessels that would be fishing these two species and selling to EU market? And for us, we have an agreement. Gambia is peculiar. I don't subscribe to the one solution fit for all, as has been cited. We have our peculiarities. It has been cited by the member for Serakunda. Our young people in Europe, they are languishing in their capitals under that threat of deportation. So this is a bargaining chip that Gambia could be presenting, that they are there. You want to bring them back. So how can they be factored in these agreements? They can, of course. Because at the end of the day, they are all there for greener pastures, to make better lives. That's the objective. And then employment is a step towards that. Being engaged and then earning something economically, financially. So these are issues that should have been factored. So these are the peculiarities of Gambia. Gambia, as small as it is the second country that has more people in this irregular migration phenomenon. As small as we are second in rank. Imagine. So I believe the agreement has not done much in terms of creating avenues for employing as many young people as possible, both in the Gambia and those who are languishing in the European countries for want of or in search of better lives. I am also of the view and would support for renegotiation, Honorable Minister. I believe this is an agreement that we can renegotiate, and we can take these arguments before them that Gambia is in a transition in terms of political transformation, and it is an exceptional situation. It's not normal. From that perspective, so this can be an argument. Yes, we are not opposed to the agreement. We are not opposed to Gambia entering into agreement with the EU for them to come and fish in our waters for these species. That is needed in countries other than the Gambia, of course, in quotes. But how can it accommodate more for Gambia in terms of creating employment? We have factories onshore in the Gambia here for the processing of the fish that is catch by the vessels. Having more young people on board those vessels. Even renegotiating the amounts, because if we're going by this, means that Gambia is going to get $3 million, nothing more than $3 million every month. That's what it means. Nothing more than $3 million every month. And they're also talking about this fishing. Well, they said this is also going to help us from preventing IUU, illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing. Well, that's fine. As they've cited, there are vessels there, the Chinese are fishing in our waters, and we would need capacity to ensure that there is zero poaching in our territorial waters. But then, I am of the conviction, unless otherwise proven wrong, that EU would not be, engaging anything that would be exploiting the Gambia at the end of the day, considering the concerns they have expressed, especially, as I have said, the Gambia is in a transition, and therefore it's an exceptional situation that needs support for us to be on our feet to start a new process in terms of nation building, that is post-transition Gambia. So, in conclusion, I would really support efforts towards renegotiating this agreement so that at the end of the day it's going to be a win-win for both the Gambia and the EU. On that note, thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Member for Woolly West. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I like the agreement for one reason. I like it because, for me, I see it as an indictment. Indictment in the sense that for 50 years we have been so-called independent, but we have still not learned how to make use of our resources for our development. That is the indictment. It's like you have petrol, you know you have petrol, but because you say you have no capacity, you turn yourself into a beggar to do what you could have done without being a beggar. This agreement has many technicalities. Some of them have already been raised. But I'm not going to take long. I asked some few questions. I tried to understand when the Honourable Member for Upper Florida West was intervening. She at least succeeded in clarifying some of the things that I didn't understand. But my first question is it that they have identified special places in our ocean where only the tuna and hake live to the exclusion of other species? If that is not true, Is it that they have special fishing gears that they use and can catch only the tuna and hake, even where there are other species? I want that to be made clear to me, because if that is not true, and they don't have such special instruments, it means when they catch, they are likely to catch other species other than the tuna and the hake. And what do they do with that? Because those are not part of our agreement. I want that also to be made clear. And the other question is, what is the area, the dimension of the area in which this fishing is going to be practiced by the 41 vessels? What is the area? What is the area of the ocean? Are all these vessels going to be practicing at the same time, or what? For me, technically, yes, you are talking about these species being migratory. And that is why they have agreements with all those countries you have mentioned. Because they are not in all these countries at the same time. There are specific times they are in one place and they go for them there. And when they are finished, that they move to another place. I think these people have special places where they go from one place to the other. And that's why they need to have as many agreements as possible, because these species are moving from one country to the other. But once they are in Gambia, they are Gambian fish. So there is no complaint about that. That's why we are having this agreement. Once they are in our waters, they are our fish. When they move out of our waters into another water, they are no longer our fish. So I don't have any problem with that. And I pray that they always come here. So that we'll have as much money as well. But you see, the interesting thing is, I think the member from Woodley raised a very interesting point. You commit a crime and you also determine the penalty for your crime. That's why I say it's an indictment. You don't even have the capacity to know that a crime is committed against you, and you have no capacity to determine the punishment for that crime. The person committing the crime does it deliberately and also determines the penalty for the crime. 50 euros for a ton of tuna? Hey, that's charity. I think I don't know how they have come to that. But these are very serious matters to be considered in the agreement. Because we are here to defend the interests of our country. I know the European Union has been after the Gambia for this agreement for more than 20 years. Since the First Republic, madam, they have been seeking to have this agreement with the Gambia. Since the First Republic. I don't know how. They never succeeded with the First Republic, but they are now succeeding with us. I think we have to look at this very critically. The fact that we don't eat tuna or hake does not matter. We don't eat petrol, we don't eat diamonds. We don't eat all those things. But we don't say we don't eat diamond or we don't eat petrol, so therefore, no. These are our resources. We must develop, since we know that these are our resources, we must develop the capacity to tap them for the use of our country. If we don't eat it, but we export it. Like petrol, we export it. We have money. So where we beg, we stop being beggars. Where we take loans, we stop taking loans, because we have the means to do what the loans will do for us. So Madam Speaker, I think there are critical issues to be addressed in this agreement.
Honorable Member for Funyi Jarol.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. First of all, I have to thank the committee and the Minister for coming up with this good gesture. But then I have some doubts. By going through the document before me, it is not bad to look for partnership. In anything that you want to do, there is nothing bad in it. But what is very key or very important to look into is what benefits will you get when you engage somebody to come and do whatever you want him to do with you. Now, going by your document, you've stated here that the agreement is similar to other agreements the European Union have with other countries. Now, my doubt here is, did you make any findings with these countries? I'm not saying that what is applicable there is also possible to applicable here. But then, before partnering with these people, because going through this, we have to use our common sense. Twabs, they are very intelligent. So they think that, they can use us anyhow they want to use. Which is wrong.
Point of observation, ma.
Which is wrong.
Point of observation.
Okay.
I think the honorable member should apologize to this honorable house for saying that the Tubabs are very intelligent. Then who is not intelligent? I said the honorable member should apologize to this house for saying that the whites are very intelligent. Then who is not intelligent? It's an insult to me.
That maybe he can couch his language.
Can I continue?
Yes, you can continue.
Thank you.
But let's be careful.
Thank you. Anyway,
Thank you.
I am not here to offend anybody. If I do so unwillingly, I'm very sorry. But I don't raise to say I want to offend. But what I just want my fellow NAMs to understand is that these white people, they are very wise. Oh, okay, sorry, well, we have to say it.
No, I think you can just make your intervention without any
Fine.
comparison.
Okay, fine. Okay, excuse me. Now, what I want to find out is, did you make inquiries from other partners, how far they have gone with them, so that we'll also either copy in one way or the other. 2, according to the document here, it is stated that the Gambia lacks the capacity to catch these species. Now, I am suggesting that if we lack the capacity to catch these species, may I suggest that, can these people who want to partner with us in catching the species that they want to catch in our seas, can they teach us first how to catch these fish? So that we know how these fish, whether are they fish or species that are valuable in terms of getting them from the sea to sell them outside. Because, you cannot just come to my land and say, you don't have the capacity on this area, but let me invest first, and then later I teach you how you can catch these fish. That person can monopolize with your farm anyhow he or she likes. Like, for example, let's look at the groundnut farming. For how many years our people have been cultivating groundnuts? But it is somebody somewhere who will come and give a price to these crops. Which, to me, I cannot understand. Because my produce, I'm the one who worked for it, I should give the price to it. But somebody outside to say, I'm pricing this for you, then it means the person is cheating. And we have to be very careful.
Honorable, sorry, I understand you can make an analogy, but can we just be a little bit, not restrictive?
Okay,
but let us deal with the report and the agreement.
Fine. My other second point is question that I want to ask the minister and the team is that the European Union will be giving the Gambia government the sum of 550,000. I want to know that. And by going through, other colleagues have said it, that 41 vessels, is it in order or is it in law that we are to allow 41 vessels to catch fish in our sea territories? It is part of our laws. And if you go again, the document is saying that also as part of the agreement, a Gambian, not Gambians, a Gambian is employed to be part of the team in the vessels to be monitoring and giving feedback to authorities whether wrong fishes are caught other than the tuna and hake. One Gambian, can one Gambian do these 41 vessels? So I don't understand this person. So can you clarify, make me more to understand? Because somebody said it here, that we need to deploy many of our these, back home youths into that area of business or farming. So I want to know here, this Gambian, is it one Gambian? Or because according to the statement, a Gambian means one. So I want you to help me to clarify that. And again, a colleague or some colleagues said it here. We have to be very careful. I am overloaded. I overloaded myself. And again, I want to charge myself. How possible is this? Will I be fair to you? Or am I a fool to charge myself more than what we may think of? I think you should charge me. If I go beyond what is expected of me getting from you, you should charge me for doing wrong. But now if I'm charging myself for doing wrong, you think I'll be a fool to charge myself what you may not be expecting? So I want us to look at this person very carefully. We charge them, but not they charging themselves for wrongdoing. And we said here, the Gambia will be gaining in this agreement. The Gambia will be gaining in this agreement is huge. In what capacity? In huge. To me, it is not clear. I don't know. Unless if you help me to understand this. And the last sentence says Gambians will be trained to be able to take up the fishing activities. Will be trained. After doing the business, catching these species, then you later come to train us again. So it's confusing. Are we to be trained first? Or after doing business with us, then you come to train us? I want the minister and the team to help me to understand this. On that note, thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Upper Salum.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank the committee for completing the assignment and for also making us to have a better understanding about what this partnership was all about. I think, Honorable Speaker, is really clear that at the onset, some of us actually did not have a good understanding about this partnership. I, for one, what I looked at the first was the word sustainable fisheries. This is the one that actually convinced me to actually look at this partnership. Honorable Speaker, the protection of our natural resources in this country is the responsibility of everyone, not only the Ministry of Water Resources. we are all responsible and we can all play our part in one way or the other. And that's the reason why when I look at this report on the Sustainable Fisheries Partnership, then I begin to look further to see the benefit we're going to have as a country. Honorable Speaker, not too long ago, we've been dealing with the budget of this country, and again, you've seen clearly that we do not have enough to be able to cater for the services that we want to render to this nation. And again, people like me have been clamoring the fact that we need to actually have other opportunities where we can actually generate income. And I wish if all other ministries are able to generate income in addition to what this Minister of Water Resources intend to do. Honorable Speaker, if I go by the figures that we are talking about here, outside the sustainable fisheries, if the 41 vessels are supposed to pay yearly, together with the 550,000 euros that the European Union is also supposed to pay, if my assumption is right, we are talking about close to $1 billion every year, if my assumptions are correct. Maybe the Honourable Minister can confirm. If those 350,000 euros that are supposed to be paid by the vessels, if it is yearly, and the European Union is also going to pay yearly 550,000, we are talking about closer to $1 billion that could be added to the revenue of this country. And I wish we can have other ministries that would do the same. Honourable Speaker, I think it's also important we understand, and I think this is really very specific. We are talking about 2 species of fish. Even in our own country here, the kind of fish we have in the combos here, when you go down to Upper Salm or Nyanija, it's not even the same type. Some of them actually migrate, and some of them continuously they move in the ocean, and some of them actually they are in the deep part of the ocean. And where do our fishermen actually go to fish in our waters? Probably below 20 nautical miles. So what happened down the ocean? What do we do with those resources that we actually have? And I think, for me personally, it's not really bad because, again, you are talking about a contract or a partnership that should be reviewed on a yearly basis. Again, if you enter into a partnership, the first year you review, you evaluate, you check and see whether this is in your favor. If it is not in your favor, you can go back and say, you know what, I cannot continue. It's there and it's a contract. So, for me, I think it's something that we can actually look into, and I will actually support for us to go ahead with this one, with the partnership, and then review ourselves at the end of the 12 months to see exactly what has worked and what has not worked, and then we try to change that. Honourable Speaker, not only are we benefiting economically in terms of the licenses that these vessels actually are supposed to pay, but I'm also read here somewhere that also Gambians will also be employed on board. They can also be trained so that at the end of the contract, maybe perhaps government can do something for them so that they can also go on their own. Honourable Speaker, I think it's also important that we know, well, we've spoken about we do not have the manpower or the resources to be able to do those things there. Yeah, if you don't have it, maybe this is an opportunity for us to learn. Okay, maybe this is an opportunity for us to learn and then move forward. Honourable Speaker, the other area also I would like to talk about here also is about the type, very specific type of fish that they're actually trying to do. Now, it's clear that these species of fish actually are actually moving. They are on the move. So, if they are on the move, territorial, if they're in the Gambia, then again, it's Gambia's fish. But the next minute or the next day or the next month, they could be out of our waters. They go into somebody else's waters. So, if they're caught in another somebody's water, I mean, where do we gain? Nothing. Okay? And I think it's also essential that we also take a look at that one as well. Honourable Speaker, the only question I have, maybe I need the chair of the committee to clarify. I'm not so sure whether it's a mistake or not, which I think some of the members actually have raised. It's about the 50 euros additional if they have gone beyond the license. I'm not too sure of it, but I think that needs some clarification. I need to get clarification on because I don't see any sense in this one. When somebody exceeds your license, then you are charged 50 euros. I'm not sure if it's an error or that's exactly what the agreement is, but I think that needs to be clarified by the chairperson. And on that note, Honourable Speaker, I would lend my support to this partnership agreement for us to go ahead with it. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Lower Badibu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for the floor. Honorable Speaker, I would like to refer this August Assembly to the Constitution, Section 211, Directive Principles of State Policy, and which signing of these documents is part and parcel of. Honorable Speaker, it says that, with your permission, the principles of state policy in this charter shall form part of the public policy of the Gambia for the establishment of a just, free, and democratic state. These principles shall not cover legal rights or be enforceable in any court, but subject to the limits of the economic capacity and development of the Gambia, the executive, the legislature, and other organs of the state in taking policy decision-making, laws, and in the administration of the Gambia. Honorable Speaker, having said this, if we go to Section 215 of the Constitution, which talk about the economic objective of the state, still under the directive principle of the state policy, it says that the state shall endeavor to create an economic environment that maximizes the rate of economic growth and employment and secure the maximum welfare of the prosperity for all persons in the Gambia. Honorable Speaker, going further, foreign relations, Section 219 of the Constitutions, it also says that the state shall endeavor to ensure that in international relations, it promotes and protects the interests of the Gambia, seeks the establishment of a just and equitable international economic and social order. Honorable Speaker, having said this, if we go through these documents, everybody is entitled to your opinion, but I'm not happy with this. I'm not happy with the fact that if we look at this, the means of achieving foreign policy, where signing of these documents belongs to, it says that we can sign documents based on persuasion, offer of rewards, threats of punishment, or non-violent punishment. But I don't think there is any threat in this. The only thing that involved in this, Honorable Speaker, is persuasion, and I'm not happy with what I have seen here. If you go through these documents, the agreement is similar to other paragraph 2. Other agreements the European Union have with other countries. The agreement is based on two spices, tuna and hake, with an amount of 3,300 tons per yearly. Did our ministry ask how much per ton will cost in Europe? Did they make their investigation on this? And if you go through they say that catching per ton is cost 50 euro. This is an insult to us as a nation. It is an insult, Honorable Speaker. Going further, the species are highly migratory and the Gambia lacks the capacity to catch them.
Just a couple of minutes ago, we cautioned the honorable member for using the word, was it the white people, or the phrase, the white people are more intelligent. You cannot preempt what I'm saying. Let's just be diplomatic. I'll just read one section that I just came across earlier on in our own standing orders. Okay. It was talking about petitions. Okay. It says 12.1. Every private application to the Assembly shall be in the form of a petition. I'm not saying that we are dealing with petitions. I understand. You will get what I'm trying to get at. Every private application to the Assembly shall be in the form of a petition and be presented by some member who shall be responsible for the same, being in order and couched in respectful language. That's just what I am trying to draw at.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.
Be careful with the choice of our words.
Thank you very much for reminding me on that caption of the standing order. But notwithstanding, Honorable Speaker, if you look at this, 50 euro, not to an individual, but a state. And who determines this 50 euro? Is it the Ministry of Fisheries or the European Union? This has to be clear to us. And if you go further, by looking at the financial gain or agreements that they signed here, 550,000 euro. This might be estimately equivalent to 27,500, 27,500,000 estimately. If you look at this, Honorable Speaker, compare this to 3,300 tons of this. How much are these people gaining, or are they giving us kicking change? I think this thing, we really need to look at these things, and we look at the economics and the financial balances of this to know that exactly, is this for our advantage or not? Because as far as foreign policy is concerned, this is not a threat to us, and it is not a non-violent punishment for us. So why are we accepting such? This is a question that each member should ask yourself. Honorable Speaker, I would like to know how did they do this thing also, lancing of these vessels, because we have seen different characters of vessels here. 41 vessels, namely 28 Sina, 10 pole and lines vessels, 3 deep sea water travelers. Whereas our people themselves did not know how these vessels are operated. What are they going to do in our waters? Did we know? I think the ministry should engage the European Union, train our people. If they know how to do these things, then we can sign this agreement. This is what we expect from them, but not the other way around. And also, if you go further, Honorable Speaker, the objective of both annual and multi-annual to be achieved over time with a view to developing responsibility and sustainable fishing activities, taking into account the priority expressed by the Gambia in its national policies relating to having an impact on the following areas. If you look at these areas, you will not, somebody has mentioned it here, that the most important thing in foreign relationship is the interest, that the state interest is the basic first. So going through this, you will know that we don't have much interest in this. The only interest that our eyes are on is this 550,000. What is this? 550,000 euro. What is 550,000 euro to Gambia? A state, not an individual, not an institution or agency. We are talking about a state. So I think I'm not happy with this at all. The minister needs to go back and persuade these people, let them renegotiate. Well, I, for one, I cannot be part of throwing my weight to this agreement, honestly speaking, Honorable Speaker. And the vessels that are here, 41, 10, and 3, how did they characterize their licensing process? Are they all the same licensing process or not? Because they have different functions to perform if you look at this. And these people have told us that they have interest in only 2 areas, that is the tuna and the hake. So why these 3 vessels? Can the minister and his ministry engage them? Why these 3 vessels? Honorable Speaker, going further, you will also learn that we are talking here day in, day out that employment opportunities for our young people. I don't know what is wrong with our African leaders, whether we lack the political willingness or we lack something, definitely, Honorable Speaker. By going through this, it's also as part of the agreement, a Gambian is employed to be part of the team in the vessels to be monitoring and giving feedback to the authorities whether wrong fishes are caught other than the tuna and hake. A Gambian is. This is language. You can help me if I'm wrong, but this is language. A Gambian is. So which means this is an individual. How many of our youths are here who are desperate going to do this back way? And some of them are even coming. So we are not looking to the future of those people, but all what our eyes are on is this 550,000 euro. What is 550,000 euro after all for a state? $27,500,000. Honorable Speaker, if you go for that, the agreement will boost the economy, create employment, and also employment for who? How many people? Employment for who? Because you have contradicted yourself here by agreement, a Gambian is employed. So now, employment to who? Let's ask ourselves. Honorable members of this August Assembly, I am urging you and appealing to you all, let the minister go back and let he persuade with these people, negotiate with them, then he come back. But without that, honestly speaking, I am not happy with this. And we have to be very careful. Shaping of our foreign policy, we are very important in this. There are 3 things that involves in shaping a foreign policy. The executive with the legislature and the public opinion. So we have to be very careful of the things that we will do here. Let the minister go back and persuade with these people and come back. But I, for one, am not happy with this, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Member for Serekunda West.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I am in support of the agreement, and I have a few questions only. But before I go to that, a resource is only useful when it is tapped. So if we have these resources in our waters and we cannot tap them, it's meaningless. It's meaningless. A resource is only useful when you can tap it. So this is an opportunity to tap the resources. And the agreement is very clear that that's going to be reviewed annually. Let's go in for it. At the end of every year we review it. Then we do our amendments. Get along the money. We're talking about 900 euros times 41 sheep. I'm not a mathematician, but I know that's a lot of money. That alone can create employment. So I am in support of the agreement, and the other observation I want to make is I think it is high time that this assembly stop assigning committees responsibilities if we will only come back here and discuss in detail. I agree. I agree that committees can do their work. When they come back, we look at it and add here and subtract here. But if we are going to subject the document to a full discussion like this, we're just wasting the time of the committee, just like we did with the other committee the other time. So I think we should stop assigning committees responsibilities. We deal with it in the whole House and finish with it. Madam Speaker, to go to my questions is the 350,000 euros. I want to know whether they are also going to pay annually as the 550 euros. That's not a little bit clear to me. And my second question is on the last page of the document. And we should not lose sight that this 2 pages is just a report of the Select Committee, but it is extracted in the entire document. My question is, it is talking about training Gambians to be trained after the 6 months or 6 years. I would rather prefer that we are trained during the 6 months rather than wait until at the end of the 6 months, just like my honorable colleague from Fonyi Jarol has indicated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Kantora.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. I want to thank the Select Committee for a wonderful job done. I also want to re-echo the statement made by Member for Serekunda West. You cannot assign responsibility to a portfolio committee in Parliament and spend their time and energy for this, bring it before this August Assembly. We spend 3 to 4 hours on a particular debate or topic given to them. It is of meaningless and it's unfair on the side of the committee, as if they haven't done justice to it. I think Parliament needs to have a relook in that. I have less intervention to make. I'm really convinced with the report of the Select Committee. I want to advise and give proposal to the Minister to please kindly embark on intensive advocacy, intensive enlightenment of the populace, and let these media houses here in presence give a true reflection of this agreement outside. We are not here to mortgage the country's resources, but it's just 2 species of fish and which are moving from one destination to the other. Sometimes these vessels are mostly engaged in where they call the free economic zone or the exclusive economic zone, that is, that belong to all these countries of the world. Is a zone or area where everybody can go and tap resources from. The reason why they are sending this agreement, in case this type of species happen to migrate without going into our waters illegally, there should be a form of a documentation agreement. And this is not final. It is tantamount to, or it's bound to review after every year. So it's not as if it is one-way thing. Once we've entered into, we cannot renegotiate again. No. Obviously, for 41 ships, it means that you are employing 41 Gambians, which is job creation. And secondly also, right after the period also, there will be that avenue for employment, because the monies accrued from that particular exercise, government would obviously have plans in terms of how do we build capacities of our local fishermen in this country, which member for Overflow West did mention that he might be a beneficiary from this agreement. So to cut long story short, it's a very good agreement, and we should know that sometimes these fish might not be present in our waters, might come all the way from Morocco, chasing them down to Gambia. And I think as far as Gambia and EU do have that mutual cooperation and mutual relation, respecting our state sovereignty, these agreements should be honored based on the numerous support that Gambia has benefited directly or indirectly from the EU, to honor this agreement and task our people in authority to make sure that during the course of the year, this agreement is reviewed. The only area that I am concerned is that you cannot dictate or foster law on people whom you believe that you are equal partners. They have presented a case. If they should exceed the ceiling or the agreement, the proposed terms, they should pay this amount of money. I think it's really unfair for them to dictate what to pay to Gambia. Rather, it's based on now, there are agreements that if you do such, those are misconduct. If you do it outside the agreement, Gambia should determine the penalties. And in my little knowledge in law is that offenses, if you commit an offense, the reprimanding is more severe compared to the offense that you committed. The rationale behind that thing is that to deter a future recurrence of that particular act. To make sure that you don't, if you have a severe punishment, it actually cautions your mind again not to conduct that act. But if you have a lesser punishment, obviously, you will say how much is a ton and how much is the penalty per se. So it's that place. I think the minister needs to have a relook in that and see how best we can have a stronger measures put in place to make sure that we reprimand any violation of this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor.
Honorable Speaker, we have an agreement here. Most members have actually discussed about it with regard of an agreement within the Gambia and the European Union of actually catching two pieces in the agreement, that is tuna and egg. As the member for Serekunda will say, this is a resources that we need to tap, and then we don't have the capacity to tap it. Then if we can have anybody that we can have an agreement with it, at least we can have an agreement with the individual organization, at least for the benefit of the Gambians. And then I think that is a move at the right direction. But my intervention is not supposed to be long. Honorable Speaker, I looked at the agreement. As the member for Woolly East and Woolly West mentioned, in case of any illegal issues that happen during the course, we have seen that it is determined, it is our partners who determine how much they should be paid. But if you look at the agreement, on the agreement where you have infringement, if you go to penalty for infringement and compromise procedure, if you could allow me to read, page 17 is where I want to draw my question. The penalty for the infringement shall be set by the Gambia according to the provision of the national legislation in force. So here now, we are looking at this agreement, and then immediately we pass it. I don't know when shall it be effective. Are we going to wait until infringement is happened, we come formulate a legislative law, or we have an existing national legislative laws that will be guiding us? So I want the minister to clarify that point. Honorable Speaker, the other issue, that is my final intervention. I have gone through the whole agreement, but I couldn't see a termination clause. So, in agreement or contract, there must be a termination clause. In case in one of the, if one of the parties, in the long run, something has to happen, and then you need to terminate. So if there is no termination clause on this contract, definitely I think that should be looked at so that we will include it in the agreement. Because in case tomorrow we want to back out due to certain reason without a termination clause, how are we going to approach it? So this was the few observations I wanted the minister to clarify. Thank you.
Any more intervention? Okay, Majority Leader. Well, I asked for contributions and I didn't get any subsequent. Yeah. Can I take the remaining interventions?
Sorry, yeah, thank you.
Yes, and then Congo East from there. Okay, thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor.
Sorry, Honorable, I just want to be sure. Yeah. Please, Banyu, Serekunda, Birkama North, and any other honorable member from that side. If you want to make an intervention, can I take see your constituency tags, please? From this side as well? No more? Okay, thank you. That's fine. Yes, that's okay. Honorable.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. I also want to join my colleagues to thank the Subcommittee on Environment for a job well done. And I think this is the beginning of some of the work that we'll be entrusting to other subsequent committees of the National Assembly. But as highlighted by some of our colleagues in their presentation, I think expert view in these things are very important. If we do not have a subject matter specialist who is not an expert in fisheries, we can copt members
to be able to come and give us their insight and experience other than the ministry that is concerned with this agreement. So I think from now on, we should continue to do that. The other issue that I have is this issue of not having the capacity. I think it's about time as Gambians, we put these adjective and vocabularies aside. We set up institutions, we don't want to capacitize them, and we keep on saying the same thing. The Local Government Act was enacted in 2002. The Ministry of Local Government and Lands is saying that the councils are not capacitated, so they cannot do the decentralization. And if you go to most of these institutions and departments, that is what is happening there. I think for the government of the Gambia, it is about time that we base our programs and activities and put it as an inbuilt activity to build the capacity of institutions that are going to be implementing these programs. Until we do that, we will continue to be lack of capacities for the next generations to come. I also want the Honorable Minister to tell me, during their negotiations, whether local knowledge was tapped and whether they were part of the negotiation process. Because a lot of people have been involved in these fishing activities since before independence. And coming from Combo South, which has almost 6 fishing landing sites in the Gambia, and they are the biggest all over the country, I know that there is local knowledge to be able to advise the ministry on these pieces. And for the information of those who do not know about tuna fish, it's the best fish in this Gambia for fish ball. If you want to prepare fish ball, tuna fish is the best in this country. Yes, I can be proven wrong. I came from Gunjur, so I know about it. It's just like the sharks. Before independence, people in this country don't want to eat sharks. You go to Gunjur, they are just thrown out. But when they put in something, and then they want to bring it to be able to upgrade it and also add value, shark has become the most expensive fish in this country. So why do we not regenerate and also improve this species and also add value to the tuna fish so that the Gambia people can have more, and then it will be one of the most expensive fish in this country. I also want the minister to tell us the number of people or local people who are involved in this committee. They said they're going to set up a committee which will include members of the National Assembly. How many local people are going to be there, and what is the composition? So all these things will have to be clear. Sorry, I have a bad cold. All these things will have to be cleared so that people know who and who are going to be there and who will be making decisions on behalf of the Gambian people. So those things are also very important. But the other thing is the seasons. You go to the villages, they will tell you the best time that you can catch tuna fish in this country. Go to Tujereng, go to Tanje, go to Gunjur, go to Burfoot, and go to Batukunku. They will tell you the times and when you can catch them. They will be able to tell you because they know the season. So I think this local knowledge is very important. Why is it that the government want to wait until the expiration of the agreement to start the capacity building? You know how much it costs to bring an average expert to do a training for 10 days in this country? Is going to be close to $25,000. So if we're going to have 3-4 people for a week or 3 weeks, all the money that is collected for the year is going to go back to the expatriates. So that's what our problem is in this country. Per diems and costs to experts are taking almost 40% of our funds. At the end of the day, we will not have anything to give back to the Gambian people. And also, it is also very important to have South-South cooperations when we are going into these partnerships. Or as highlighted by some other people, have they consulted Senegal, Morocco, and other countries that have signed this agreement? What have been their experiences and what are the learning points that the Gambia can also take on? So I think, Honorable Speaker, with these 4 points, I want the Minister to clear that to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Bundunka Kunda. Yeah, Bundunka Kunda.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the floor. And I would like to thank the Environment Committee for engaging the ministry to clear certain doubts. It is a wonderful job which you could understand a bit clearly about all about the agreement. But, Madam Speaker, I was going through the agreement, and I have a special interest, not only the monetary value, but also whether, as part of the catches, what can Gambia benefit from? Madam Speaker, according to the report, Gambians don't have the capacity to go for tuna and hake. Madam Speaker, if we don't have the capacity, then I think it should be part of the agreement where Gambia will also benefit from part of the catch of the fishes. If not, all the tunas in our waters will only be carried to Europe without Gambians getting the taste of it. Madam Speaker, tuna is a very nice fish. It is very delicious. And I think Gambians should not be denied to enjoy that delicious meal. Therefore, Madam Speaker, if it is an oversight, fine. But if it is not an oversight, or if I did not skip it, it's not part of the agreement, I am proposing for it to be part of the agreement so that Gambia can get a percentage of the total catch that these vessels will catch, so that will stay in our country for it to be on our menus too. Madam Speaker, having said that, I think our local fishermen, as the previous speaker before me just said, we have some local fishermen who do catch this tuna, and they also have some knowledge about it. It will be very important if they can, or if they can be capacitized so that, as part of the agreement, so that they can also be able to catch this tuna for our local market too. If not, I think we will lose greatly. We all know that Gambia here, fish is what many Gambians can afford. But if European vessels are now authorized to fish in our waters, meaning it will be that part of the fish family will be absent, and the price of that fish will increase in our local markets, which will have direct effect on our people. And we all know how much a fish costs now in the Gambia, in our markets. Our wives, sisters are crying every day, market is hard. Any day you hear the market is hard, is because there is no fish in the market, or there is very little. So for that being the case, Madam Speaker, I think that is what I want the Honorable Minister to look into so that we can also benefit from it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Member for Kumbo East.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Select Committee on Environment for a job well done, and I believe they have done justice to this report. The Fisheries Agreement, the Sustainable Fisheries Partnership Agreement between the Republic of the Gambia and the European Union, it is very, very important as far as the agreement is concerned. But there are very few salient points which I would like to make, and I would like the Minister to put more light on those. First, I want if the Minister can tell us what barometer they use to control the catch limited to 330,000 tons a year. So I think that's very important if the Minister can clear that for us. And in the report on page 2 paragraph 2 of the page, of second page, in the agreements also of the Union, fishing vessels in the Gambia exceeds the annual reference tonnage indicated. The total amounts of the annual financial contribution shall be increased by €50 for each additional tonnage. I believe this should not be used as a yardstick to take the advantage of this situation. To making it a legal tool for further degrading our marine resources. I believe this is very important. I think if the Minister can also elaborate more on that. And as well, I believe there should be a periodical review as to when and how the need will arise towards the full implementation of these agreements. I believe if that is done, that would be a foregone conclusion. Also, if the Minister can actually put this to light, certain appropriate measures, I believe, should be taken in order for the monitoring and surveillance systems that could determine the type of fish caught at a particular given moment and a period of time. As the Gambia lack capacity, as clearly demonstrated by the ministry, that more so some technical experts who will be responsible for reporting matters of common concern to the government of the Gambia. I believe this agreement should serve its intended purpose for the interest of the Gambian people. Honorable Speaker, without much ado, because a lot has been said, I definitely support this bill, and I believe more reports and more periodic consultation will be done in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Birkama North, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Being a member of the committee, I have very little to say, as our concerns were highly addressed during the committee meeting, where experts and the minister, together with his technical team, were invited. It was like those who are unfortunate to be part of the committee, the concerns that they were raising were more of the same concern that the committee members engaged the minister with. And I can tell you, our engagement with the minister had put us through, and some of the fears that we had were actually allayed. Nonetheless, there are some points that we highlighted during the course of our interaction, which are important to bring at the plenary. Somehow, some honorable members did mention some of those issues. If we are to say that the Gambia doesn't have the capacity to fish tuna and hake, we did put that to the ministry.
in as much as our resources are concerned, we could go any length to try to exploit that for the best interest of the Gambia. And as a sovereign nation, I think by now we should stop crying about lack of capacity. I think it should be matter of interest. The government should now begin to show much interest to our mineral resources and invest to exploit that for the best interest of the Gambians. I am saying this simply because if European Union is ready to invest heavily in this area, in addition to what the ship owners would pay annually, they are attaching the value and importance of these species. If that is known to us, I am saying our government should begin attaching importance and values of the species that are important. As majority leaders said, the people in the coast know the values of this. So locally we know it. That means locally the people don't have the means. But as a nation, we cannot say that we cannot say to have the means. This was the issue that we pressed with the Honorable Minister. If you look at the budget, the allocation to this specific ministry is very low, meaning this ministry is not a priority. And I want to believe it is agriculture, tourism, and this ministry. If the Gambia want to live economically independent, that we should turn our face on to make sure due consideration are given to. Yes, we cannot afford to say no to the bill simply because the resources are there, whether we do it or not, since the fish are not permanently in the Gambian territory. They migrate, come and go. Whether we do it or not, others are going to benefit. Yes, we can benefit. But it will be better we benefit in our own way. And that's why we are saying, the Honorable Minister press the government so that the government spend on the ministry. We cannot say we don't have the means. I want to believe what we lack is the interest. Let's begin to show interest and exploit our own mineral resources. Thank you.
Very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the floor. Honorable Speaker, let me also thank the Select Committee who did this wonderful job. Honorable Speaker, Sustainable Fisheries Partnership Agreement between the Republic of the Gambia and the European Union. Honorable Speaker, I think this is a very good agreement. European Union is a very genuine partner with the Gambia. And then having gone with them into this agreement, I feel actually it's a move in the right direction. Honorable Speaker, this is the first start of this agreement, and agreements are bound to review periodically, maybe yearly or so. The comments that the honorable members who spoke before me made those comments, and the minister is right before us. I believe he must have been taking note of those comments, so that if the periodical report of reviewing this agreement comes, he can take note of these things, concerns of the honorable members. Honorable Minister, I just have a few questions to ask. That is about 41 vessels. Now, these 41 vessels, how many Gambians are they going to engage in these vessels? Now, the other issue I wanted to ask Honorable Minister, these these tunas and the hake are flying in our water for over the years, and Gambia is not getting any benefit out of it. With this agreement, certainly I think we're going to get a lot of financial benefits out of it. Now, but what I want to ask, can your ministry think of recommending to the government so that Gambia can have its own fishing vessels in order that we can train young Gambians to go and do fishing in our country? Not only this, but other fishes that will certainly bring some economic gains and profit for this country. Your ministry can do that, and it is your ministry who should be able to think about that and come up with that idea. With these few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I thank you very much for giving me this floor, and I beg to take my seat. Thank you.
Any more interventions? No? May I then call on the chair, the Honorable Chairperson of the Select Committee to respond to the issues that have been raised by honorable members, and then thereafter we'll call on the Honorable Minister. But before we do so, may I just, for my records, the issue of termination was raised. May I just recollect an honorable member who raised that there was no issue of, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Madam Speaker,
agreement. Yes, go ahead.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much for allowing me to use the floor once again. Madam Speaker, please grant me leave to express my unflinching happiness on behalf of the Committee on Environment, Sustainable Development and NGO Affairs. Madam Speaker, we are humble. Humble in the sense that we have received a multiplicity of opinions from these hybrid parliamentarians. Madam Speaker, this we were expecting, and our expectations have not been that. If you present before an assembly that prides itself for not being a rubber stamp assembly, Madam Speaker, you must expect a series of questions. Questions that are geared towards nation building. And this is why, Madam Speaker, I said on behalf of the committee, we are greatly happy. All the questions and all the members were quite oblivious of Section 112, that is national interest and concerns. And if there is anything, their contributions are motivated to a great extent by Section 112. So we thank them for their valuable contribution. It is about us. And where your mouth is, or where your money is, your mouth is. It's a government matter. There's nothing about the committee without you. So we thank you for your wonderful contributions. Madam Speaker, this motion is presented not based on the balance of probability, but based on certainty that this nation must move forward, that this nation must be forward-looking, and that's our aim, Madam Speaker. To come to the wonderful comments or remarks, I will start with my friend from Nyanija. Madam Speaker, as usual, he saw praises on the committee, talked about fight against IUU. He also drummed up support for the committee. Member for Latrikunda Sabiji, harp on monitoring mechanism and also praised the committee. Youth employment. Member for Ilyasa equally felicitated the committee and talked about the benefits the Gambia is supposed to enjoy. Member for Serekunda, Madam Speaker, dilated on cost-benefit analysis, symbiotic as opposed to parasitic, surveillance mechanisms, youth employment. Member for Foni Kansala, why lack of capacity? Benefits the Gambia stand to enjoy, surveillance, number of vessels, the 50 euros fine, thorough review. Member for Jara Central also dilated on how the ministry arrived at the 550 euro. He also harped on the benefits that the Gambia stands to enjoy. Nominated member Ndei Yasin also harped on surveillance. She also inquired as to why Gambia doesn't need the tuna and the hake. The effects of the arrangement, i.e. the agreement. Member for Jada West.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Member, you may recall that during the interventions of the Honorable Members, they dealt both with your report and the agreement as presented by the, or tabled by the Honorable Minister. So maybe your intervention, your response can be just limited to the interventions of the Honorable Members on your report. Then we will allow the Honorable Minister to respond on the substance of the report, no, not report, agreement as tabled by the Honorable Minister. Otherwise, we will have a duplication of responses. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, as it pleases you, and thank you for the guidance. In fact, that will make my work very, very easy. Just to give a quick summation. Madam Speaker, thank you very much. This agreement, Madam Speaker, is out to reinvigorate the IUU, that is the unreported and unregulated fishing. The agreement is out to reinvigorate that, and the agreement will never fall short in defending that, because that IUU is very, very important, Madam Speaker, and the agreement is quite cognizant of that. Madam Speaker, whether the Gambia stands to benefit, most of the members talked about that. Yes, Madam Speaker, this agreement is pro-Gambian. Gambia is going to enjoy and Gambia is going to benefit immensely, because the ministry and the committee are quite cognizant of Section 112, like I said. So it's Gambia first, and it's a Gambian matter, and we are not oblivious of the Gambian factor. Madam Speaker, members also talked about youth employability. Madam Speaker, the committee is very, very interested in the welfare of the youths. For we know that the youths are the bulwark of any society. So their employment is a matter of most for every government. The government will never sack neither the ministry or the committee its responsibility in ensuring that the youths are adequately factored in the employment sector. So the motion is employment conscious. Madam Speaker, member for Serekunda, whether Gambia stands to enjoy. Yes, Gambia stands to enjoy immensely. And if I remember very well, Madam Speaker, this agreement is not cast on stones. There is tendency for the marriage to be terminated as and when the other party is not satisfied as to the way things are going. So it's not cast on stone. There is tendency for it to be, this thing broken if we are not satisfied with the way they are doing things. And the EU has not been given, and they shall not be given, a carte blanche that is free hand in dealing with our fisheries resources. No. Madam Speaker, there are safeguards. And these safeguards have to do with the law. So they are guided. All their actions are placed within the guards and fences of the law. So they cannot have it as they wish. They are guided by the law. And that's the Gambian law, which is supreme. Madam Speaker, the member for Janjambure made allusion to the Constitution. Sorry, made allusion to the 1987 agreement. Madam Speaker, the 1987 agreement, it does not mean that it's not factored. If anything, this agreement has come to reinvigorate that 1987 agreement. So we have never lost sight of the agreement. It is important. But for anything, this agreement has just come to reinforce whatever is embedded in that agreement. And the agreement is not here to flout the elements that are contained in that agreement, but just to fine-tune. Madam Speaker, many members also talked about surveillance. To assuage your fears, Madam Speaker, the ministry is very, very cognizant of the issue of surveillance mechanism. There will be in place what is called state-of-the-art transponders. These are state-of-the-art gadgets that will be installed wherever these people are at sea. They will be seen, whatever they are doing. And the transponders will serve as effective measures to gauge their performance or their operations while they are at sea. So like I said, they are not given a free hand. And on board these vessels are going to be our Gambian brothers who are going to work in there. So that talks of employment. And the Gambian brothers there are also going to monitor physically because they will be with them. Madam Speaker, people talk about quality and assessment. Madam Speaker, why we have this robust surveillance mechanism in place is to gauge their performance. I'm sure, and I believe fervently, that the ministry, they have done their assignment, and that's why they have submitted this motion to us. So with regards to quality and assessment, those things have been taken care of, because this is about the Gambia. If the deal succeeds, the Gambia succeeds. If the deal fails, the Gambia fails. And as a ministry and as a committee, we will go in for the former as opposed to the latter. We are in for the progress of the country, and we shall never relent in our efforts to make sure that the Gambia progresses in leaps and bounds. Madam Speaker, by and large, this is what the members have been asking, the benefit to the Gambia. Gambia stands to enjoy greatly, significantly, because we are cognizant of Section 112. We are banking on Section 112. That is, whatever we do, we must be guided by our conscience and the supreme interests of the Gambia. And thank God, these things are very close to the heart of the ministry, to the heart of the Select Committee on Environment, Sustainable Development and Indian Affairs. So it's a Gambian matter. Please feel free. And on behalf of the committee, I would like both sides of the political divide to follow the drumbeat of the ministry and that of the committee. That is to throw your weight behind this important motion. It is here to help our Gambia. And make no mistake, our waters are going to be adequately policed. Make no mistake, because we are cognizant of the way and manner some of these fishing vessels, how they deal with our resources. Yes, if they have found one thing in terms of overfishing, there are safeguards. And the ministry and all of the committee are cognizant of our juvenile fish. So let your fears be allayed. It's about the Gambia, and the Gambian interest is going to be protected. And we are going to defend the Gambian interest with rocket arsenals. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. May I now call on the Honourable Minister to respond to the issues that were raised in the agreement that was earlier tabled and to wind up the debate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and thank you very much, honorable members. I really enjoyed listening to all the comments and observations that were made, and it tells me more and more that there is need for us to engage in better communication so that we don't have to spend a long time discussing something that normally, if we had communicated, we will not do. However, this agreement is a sustainable fisheries agreement. Central government will have 625,000 euros a year. Our fisheries department will have 275,000 euros a year. You ask yourself why the agreement is structured such. We know that getting money from central government is a little bit difficult. So in our discussion with the EU, we talked about our national development plan. And this national development plan has to be unpacked. One of the objectives is capacity building. We know that our central government will not give us this kind of money because you've already approved our budget, you know how much we've got. And secondly, when we talk about young people, if we want to engage them in the industry, we should have some flexibility about the resources. What is happening now, if they want resources, they need to have a collateral. And of course, if you ask an unemployed young person, bring collateral for me to give you money to do business, you may not have anybody. So we are going to take this 275,000 to start building capacity. Now, when you talk about building capacity, the ideal is that we have our fishing trawlers, we have fisheries technology, we have processing and storage facilities, and we have the finance. Now, those are high cost, which cannot be provided. So what we intend doing here is to use this 275,000 to engage our young people, to give them fisheries technology, to give them the boats and the nets, etc., so they start building their capacity, which hopefully in 6 years they would be able to go into bigger businesses. But we don't have that facility at the moment. I recall saying in this house when we just came in 2 years ago that we had 11 million in the accounts that I wanted to use to engage young people. But if I want to give them a loan and they are asked to pay 18%, or they want to give collateral, they cannot do it. So the flexibility comes with this agreement now that I can use, the ministry can use this amount of money to engage with our young people, with our women, to build their capacity so that they can begin to be more engaged in the industry. Now we have questions about license fees. License fees are determined by the size of each of the vessels. And we have come back to you where we are putting together an additional charge of 50% instead of what we used to charge, because we think that they can afford to do it. Why? We are asking them to pay us 10% or land 10%. And we have generated over almost 50 million in that. That is 10%. Now, then we realize that the 90% is far bigger than the 10%, so we need to increase the licenses so that Gambia will benefit
more in this. There was this discussion about additional catch of 50 euros. And I think this is a misunderstanding also. In the Gambia, in our own laws, we have valued the ton of tuna for $4,000. Why? We never catch them. Nobody will buy them. We don't have the capacity to go out and sea and catch them. So if somebody had 1 ton of tuna in the Gambia today, our legislation is saying you have to sell it for 4,000 FOB price. So when somebody is saying, if I catch additionally, I will give you 50 euros, which is almost $4,000, you begin to see we are not losing. But the agreement says if you catch so much, this is what you're going to pay. If you don't catch so much, you will still pay us that amount. If you catch excess of what is in the agreement, then you pay additionally. And that is what the agreement is talking about. Because you know, when you throw your nets, you cannot say today I will get 2 tons or 1 ton or whatever. You throw your nets and the catch is scientifically recorded. And that is where our observer in that vessel comes in. The observer will communicate to the ministry directorate every morning on the catches that all these vessels are making, so that we know how much all these trawlers are catching on a daily basis. And the observer, thank God, we have a group of observer association. They train their observers. Normally this should be a government function. But because of the situation we had before, some Gambians came together and they have their observer association. We are empowering them. They give training to their members. So when we want to get an observer in a vessel, they would give 3 names to the director who would select the final. So that at least we know there is a balance there, that everybody is given a chance. And that's how it operates. I will talk about Senegambia later on because I know it came up in the discussion. Now, reaching this agreement, when we took over government, there was nothing happening. So I requested through the EU representative that I want to start negotiating with the EU for this agreement. Fortunately, I think this was around February, March. Fortunately, in October, they gave us appointment to travel. So I traveled with 2 experts, and we then went and started this discussion, how we can come to an agreement. And of course, it takes time when you start this dialogue. They sent a consultant here to come and discuss with us scientifically and to see even what we are signing, do we have them? And that is why in this agreement, you are not seeing the other species. Because scientifically, we think it is low, and we don't want to sign an agreement when it is low. We don't have the capacity to do that. We are engaging with Mauritania through the sub-regional organization to help us scientifically to know what our fish stocks are, so that when we sign for shrimps or other species, we know what we are talking about. The negotiation took us 6 days, and it was difficult. And that is why when I talked to friends, I said, this agreement is good, it's the best compared to every other agreement. We have 80 kilometers coastline. The other countries have longer coastlines. And in fact, they are asking, how did you manage to get this figure? When we were there with 3 other countries, simultaneously, negotiating with different groups. We negotiated tough. Fortunately, because we have the experts that have been in the system. My permanent secretary, somebody asked about what do we gain. My permanent secretary was trained through our EU Fisheries agreement to doctorate. Him and many other Gambians. Unfortunately, the majority of them are not in the system anymore. Some have been sacked, some have been imprisoned, etc., etc. But that's history. Now we want to build and make sure that we benefit more from this agreement. The question was raised about the number of ships in our rivers. That again comes to how we understand We have 80 kilometers, but according to international law, our EEZ is 200 kilometers. And we are talking about deep sea. The majority of us will not see these vessels around, because where they are, we don't go. Unless we have a drone or somebody takes a picture and tells us, we have no chance of knowing. But they are reporting to us on a regular basis because we have an observer and the record is scientific. The issue of negative impact was mentioned. This agreement, if it has any impact, is beneficial, because it will allow us to do things that we think can build our capacity. It will allow us to try and get Gambian ownership into the industry. We all lament the fact that there are only few Gambians in this industry. We remember the good old days when we have the NPEs and the life fisheries and everything. Now we don't have any major Gambian involved, because this is high cost. And to be able to get Gambians involved, they must first go into it, they must be trained, and then hopefully we will provide little capital to start up, and hopefully also we are hoping to form a fisheries cooperative. We have different fisheries organizations in the country, but we want to find a way of bringing them to one umbrella organization, because it is not competition as such, it's how do we build the capacities together. I mentioned here when I came one time that what we did was, initially when we came in, was to have a retreat with all our stakeholders. So we are not doing this in the absence of knowledge. We are doing this because the stakeholders themselves, 3 days, has given us what they think they need in the industry. Now we are trying to use our networks to enable us to get that capacity, to give those inputs to them so that they can be better fishermen in the future. Something was mentioned about pricing. You know, the fishing industry is a business. And you have what you call a fisherman price. And when somebody pays a fisherman price, he goes to the market like we have. When you go to the boat, you buy a fisherman price, the banner goes up, and he puts his own cut, and somebody else puts his own. That's the way it operates. So the fisherman price is when it is caught at sea. When it comes now to the table, then the prices obviously will be different, because people have processes to go to bring that to the table. That is why, and this price is compared to what everybody in the sub-region is buying for. It's not an abstract price that you just begin to say, I'll put it at this today, I'll put it at that tomorrow. We don't have the ideal situation. I recall when we went to the Mauritanian president, what he told us, that we should negotiate as a bloc. But we all know Africa. That's the problem. If we negotiate as a bloc, we may get better deals, but we are negotiating as individual countries. So it's the hard bargainer always who, and we are fortunate that we are strong. We just made sure that we use, of course, the past experience and where Gambia is coming from and how we need to be supported. That is why we got such a good bargain. Now, the method of fishing tuna and hake is special gears. And you have to have tons of fuel in your trawler, etc., but you have to be out sea. Now, we are hoping Gambians will begin to be interested, because we've seen in other countries how fisheries have developed their own citizens. But it is absent in the Gambia. It's time that we begin to say, how can we benefit from the resources? I recall my friend saying that what we have in the sea is enough to develop Gambia. I agree. But we have to get the capacity to do it. And that is where we need a start. For me personally, and for our ministry, this is a beginning. It is our hope that anybody who takes over after us will pick it up and run. But we would, by the time we leave a strong foundation that the industry will develop. The question of national legislation came up. Of course, we do have. We have a national legislation, and that is why we didn't include that. That is why we mentioned that in our argument, that if there is any infringement, we are going to use our national laws to deal with it. Again, the question was raised about no exit clause. We provided in this argument that we will annually meet. And when we annually meet, we are going to review what we have done, how the agreement has gone, what is the good and bad about the agreement. Then we can say what we need to do. In our mind now, the members of that committee will be the ministry, the Fisheries Department, some retired fisheries experts. We have Fisheries Association, like I mentioned, we have about 3-4 of them, and the member of NAM. Then, of course, EU will get the other group of people. So we will sit with the data before us and review whether there is any benefit in this agreement or we need to stop them. There was this mention about South-South cooperation. This is what we want. But unfortunately, we all know, we see what is happening in AU, we see what is happening in ECOWAS. We, Gambia and Senegal, initiated this West African Fisheries Organization. And we are struggling. In fact, we are supposed to go to Cape Verde to review the agreement. But, you know, every country has an interest. And every country wants to promote their interests. So the South-South agreement, much as it is very good, sometimes it's impossible to achieve. We need to continue working on them. The mention about cost of tuna, how beautiful it is, how good it is on the table, in my experience, even as Minister of Fisheries, I have never found a locally caught tuna. Maybe some people have the experience. Because they don't go there. The artisanal fisheries we have cannot reach where they can get these tunas. So to put it on our table, we only have to go to the supermarket. At the moment, I am hoping that if we can sustainably develop this industry, Gambia, Gambia can really benefit. Before I conclude about this agreement about hake, you see, we are talking about something that is seasonal. We are talking about something that is migratory. Now, the question is asked, why didn't we benefit all this time? In fact, the mention was, why did the former government not sign the EU agreement? I think most of us know why. You have executive directives, don't give any license to anybody, but we know Moroccans, we are fishing in our waters with a mothership out there. So there was no anybody else benefiting from the industry. And that's the reason why this agreement was not signed. It was not signed because it was not personal interest of the country. It was signed for other reasons. And let me come now to the Senegambian agreement. You see, this agreement is not new. This agreement we found. And I have said, we all agree to the fact that Ndanka Japagolo. When we signed this agreement, the first time we insisted, Senegal will help us with training. As at now, we have 5 people, 2 doing doctorates, 2 masters, and 1 bachelor's in fisheries technology. We have 5 Gambians that have returned, that have been trained in aquaculture. They are sending us 2 experts to come and work with us to develop our aquaculture. And Senegal is always willing to help us to build capacity. Now, for the first time, every vessel that is registered in the Senegambian Confederation Agreement will land 4 tons of fish. And I have explained to here before what we do with it. Our hospital, our prisons, our military. For the first time, we are saying, let the government be seen to be helping those vulnerable Gambians. And that is what we are using those 4 tons for. Now, we have even engaged with some Gambians who are willing to sell fish from here to Koina. When we land excess of fish, we sell it to them, and they go out and sell it to the local market. The ministry is really making every effort to have a sustainable fisheries in this country. The ministry is making every effort to engage Gambians. Because we cannot leave this industry in the hands of foreigners. And at the moment, that's what it is. So you must help me. Let us promote this idea. We accept that there is need for more communication to enlighten our people. What we did when we had this agreement, we call a press conference. We highlight everything that was happening. What is unfortunate? Sometimes we don't base our arguments on facts. People like us that sometimes go into social media, they get confused when they see certain articles because it is far from the truth. But people pick it up and make it real, which we must avoid as leaders of this country because social media cannot govern Gambia. It is us. But sometimes they mislead, and until it becomes truth. And that is why Trump is saying about fake news. We must avoid that in this country if we want to progress. All of us together. I have said here before and I will say it again. Our ministry is open to anybody who needs more information. You don't need an appointment to come and see us. Except when you come, you find somebody in, then you cannot see us. But if you come anytime, you are welcome, and we are there to explain further anything that is dealing with this agreement. What is our ideal situation? 1, get private sector involvement. Because government is not a good businessman, we all know that. Private sector must be involved, and that's why we are continually trying to see how we can engage private sector, particularly Gambians. We have made it a point, unfortunately, it's not a law. But anytime whoever comes even to license a ship, we ask you, do you have a Gambian partner? Because we think that's the only way we can build our capacity. I look forward to the day when we will have our own trawlers to ply our waters. Then we will not give license to anybody. It will be ours, we'll be doing it ourselves. But until such time, something must be done. We cannot just say because we don't have it, we are sitting down and wait for the God to help us. Like we always say in this country, Yalla Bahna. Why there is also saying, Yalla Yalla Besator. We cannot be idle and sit down and just say, oh, let's leave it to chance. We must do something. And that is why you see what we are trying to do. I am hoping I have been able to capture all the points.
Sorry, according to my records, I think the Honorable Majority Leader raised the issue of involving the local fishermen, especially those of them in Combo South, who are very conversant with the tuna fish migration period and all whatnot.
I think I spoke about that.
Oh, you did?
Because what we did, like I said, we had a retreat with all the stakeholders. So what the ministry is doing now is not our agenda, it's the agenda of the stakeholders. We are constantly in contact with all these groups because they all have their organizations and associations. So we are really working with them because at the end of the day, they matter more than the ministry. So we are closely working with all of them to have a better situation. So I'm hoping that I have answered all the questions. If not, maybe I could be reminded. But I thank you once again for...
No, Honorable Nominated Member, we are not taking new questions. We're just making sure that the issues that have been raised are captured. Was your question answered?
No. Yeah, whether in addition we can have in the agreement so that we can have a percentage of the catch to remain in the Gambia.
It does. So I wish it works that way. For example, if we bought hay here, who will want to buy it? The argument we have with other fishing companies that will give 10% or 4 tons is fish that we eat here. If we have the industry that can develop those species, oh yes. But as at now, when you bring it, it's going to waste. And that is why there is no agreement like that, no consideration at the moment. If we build this capacity that we are talking about, and you know, like I said, every time we talk about capacity building, it's wide. We must be able to zero in on some of the issues that we want to do, and hopefully with your help, maybe next year our budget will increase. You will ask the government to give us all the money that is coming from this agreement. Then, of course, the industry can do better.
Minister, honorable members, I just want to understand one thing. No, I'm coming, honorable member for Serekunda. Let me not be preempted. What I want to say is that the procedure is for us to take a vote. But if the honorable minister has not responded to the issues that had already been raised by honorable members who had made their interventions, then I will take it. But I will not take new interventions. That's just what I want clarified. Now, of course, honorable member for Janjambure,
I asked about these 41 vessels. How many at a time would be allowed in the Gambian waters?
Well, you see, that's the beauty. I'm sorry, I should have said that. It doesn't mean that the numbers we have signed will all be in our waters. Maybe it's be 10, I don't know. Because it depends on the country that will want to apply. We are told now that only 2 countries are interested to come and fish in our waters. They may not have that number of vessels to come and fish. So what will be in our waters is dependent on how many people do apply. So at the moment, we cannot really, because like all arguments, you would have to put a figure that not more than this will do that. So that's what we've done. So that when they come to apply, we will make sure that we are going according to the agreement.
Thank you. Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Minister, my question was that whether your ministry has any plan to have Gambian-owned fishing trawlers.
Yes, that's what I said. When we talk capacity building, what do we mean? Having our own fishing trawlers, having good fishing technology, processing and storage plants, and finances. Because the industry, much as it's very profitable, needs an input, a heavy input of money to start doing what you want to do. But really, this is our aim.
Kunda?
Yes, Honorable Speaker, I think it's 2 things. One is the denunciation clause that the Honorable Minority Leader mentioned. So what is seen here, I didn't mention it in my intervention maybe, in the protocol, page 7, Article 15 talked about termination. But it made reference to Article 16 of the agreement. So there is the agreement, there is the protocol. The protocol is talking about termination.
Sorry, Honorable Member, on my part, for me, I just want to make sure that this was part of your original intervention.
Well, it's okay. I can withdraw them. Then my original intervention, well, it is mentioned and it's an issue that I thought I will just mention for the minister.
I am asking, did you raise it?
It was
if you
raised.
raise it, then it's fine.
No, it's okay. My concern then, my main point is we talked about renegotiation. What's your argument against
And I would still go back to my question, please.
Yes.
Was it an issue that you raised during your intervention earlier?
Honorable Speaker,
if it is yes, then we can go ahead.
Yeah, Honorable
then
Speaker,
maybe if it is not, you can make a case, justify it, that it is relevant because of A, B, and C. Because I am just guided by procedure myself.
No,
Otherwise, everybody will jump and say, I have a right after we close the intervention.
Yeah, I respect your position. That's why I left the thing, because I saw it and he mentioned it, and I wanted to at least zero on it. Not necessarily that I was concerned about it, because I was talking about renegotiation. That's why I didn't go to the merit. So, but that is the essence, therefore. My concern is the issue.
If he has mentioned it as a concern, it can be addressed.
Yes, okay. So thank you very much,
I just want
Honorable
us
Speaker.
to follow procedure.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. What I have seen here is in the protocol, there is an agreement and a protocol. Page 7 of the protocol does talk about, Article 15 does talk about termination. But it makes reference, if you allow me, Honorable Speaker, let me just read it. It says that the protocol may be terminated at the initiative of either party, either one of the parties, under the conditions referred to in Article 16 of the agreement. And if you go to the agreement, I did not see any Article 16, but that's the issue there, what is being said there. Okay. But my major concern, Honorable Speaker, is there possibility of renegotiation? What's your view on renegotiation?
Well, I think we all know what we put in with these negotiations. And that is why we've made a provision that on an annual basis, we will be reviewing this agreement and reviewing the activities in the agreement. Now, stopping now to start renegotiation will put us back another year. And I hope none one of us would like that to happen. We are hoping that with your ratification and the EU ratification, by February, March, this agreement will kick in and we as a ministry will be able to do the work that we want to do. But hopefully, if there is any issue that we see during the course of the year that is not favorable to us, then we will highlight this in accordance with the program prior to that meeting and make sure that it is dealt with.
Thank you. Honorable Member for Lower Salum. Yes. Nominated Member, Jaite.
It was just a point of clarification on the issue of the Senegal-Gambia agreement he mentioned.
As I said earlier on, I'm just taking additional interventions for clarification purposes.
Yes, this was what you mentioned.
I'm coming to members who had already made their intervention and need further clarification. But I don't see on my list where you made an intervention and you need clarification. So procedure, yes. So thank you very much, Honorable Minister, and also thank you, Honorable, Banyul, not clarification?
Yes, I wanted the Honorable Minister, I addressed that issues on Senegal agreement, so I want clarification on it. The Senegal agreement.
Because I thought he had already dealt with it. He touched
No, I didn't hear it.
You see, I even allowed intervention on that, but it wasn't the Senegambia agreement per se was not before this House, but I thought that it was of relevance that it could be discussed by way of analogy, and that was why I allowed it. But not that actually it's part of what is tabled before us. But if you are still not satisfied, you need more clarification in addition to what he has already said, maybe we can give him a few minutes just to clarify. He needs to get...
No, I am not sure what you want me to clarify. We have a Senegalo-Gambian agreement. The Senegalo-Gambian agreement provides for the number of vessels that would ship fish in our waters vis-a-vis in the Senegalese waters. When somebody comes, for example, and flies a Gambia flag and wants a Senegalese license, they will get it. When somebody signs a Senegalese flag and they want Gambian license, they will get it. Of course, they will pay their fees in both countries. Now, what happens, because we realized that we are at a disadvantage, so we decided to bring in an input of 4 tons and 10%, so that at least in addition to what they are paying, we will benefit financially on that. And then, of course, then the technical assistance when it comes to training was also brought in so that we can begin to train our experts, get the right kind of caliber of people that will be working in our department and our ministry, so that they will also help now to build capacity for the future.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister and Honorable Members. Thank you very much for your interventions. And on that note, may I now put the question, be it resolved that this Honorable Assembly do ratify the Sustainable Fisheries Partnership Agreement between the Republic of the Gambia and the European Union. Those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those not in favor, please say no. So the ayes have it. Thank you. May I once more thank the Honorable Minister and also honorable members for their intervention. And as I said earlier on, I had used clause 10, subclause 3 of the standing order to change the order of business. And in doing so, since we have the Honorable Minister of Fisheries, and he also has some questions on the other paper, I would suggest that we take his questions so that we'll finish with him so that he can have his Christmas. Clerk, can we move over to the
questions?
Yes.
For oral answers by the Honorable Minister for Fisheries and Water Resources.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Question number 165 of 2018 by the Honorable Member for Fonyi Bintang. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Can the Honorable Minister for Fisheries and Water Resources inform this August Assembly the number of licenses issued to fishing vessels with amount of tonnage is expected?
Are as follows: fish and cephalopods vessels 17, shrimp vessels 25, small pelagic 2, sport fishing 2. The total gross registered tonnage represented by these vessels is 7,825.38 tons.
Thank you. Any yes, Fonyi Bintang?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. You said the gross registered tonnage is 7,855. How much do you think you can have revenue in this in dollars?
Pardon?
Revenue in dollars about this total tonnage you are talking about, 7,852.38.
Well, I don't have the actual figures. I think I mentioned it the last time I came here, what we have collected so far. You see, on an annual basis, the first year we did 50-something. Now, hopefully, we are going to be 70-odd, but I don't have the actual figures to give you now.
Maybe you can provide it and then we will circulate it. Yes, we can always circulate it. Thank you. Lower Salum.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Minister, how do you issue this license, and whether, again, these licenses also are renewed monthly or annually? And what is the cost of the license per year or per month? Thank you.
Is that a supplementary question? I hope you don't want to embarrass me. You're asking me for figures that I was not prepared with. I cannot come here and really give you figures.
No, what I'm saying here, how do you issue the license?
How do you do it? Yes, that is easy.
No, let me come.
How do you issue the lancing?
Yes.
And in what base the lancing is renewed, whether monthly or annually? Okay. And again, what is the cost of the lancing per lancing? What is the cost of per lancing?
Yeah, that one I cannot give here. But the process is such: when you have a fishing trawler or a vessel, you apply to the Director of Fisheries. The application comes through the process to the Commandant Secretary, who will recommend to me whether to approve or disapprove. I approve pending inspection, because there are certain specifications we need to have on those vessels. When our technical people go and inspect the vessel and find that it is normal, it is good, then they would recommend through the Director to the Permanent Secretary that it is okay. Then, of course, then it is approved and the license is issued. We are issuing license for 3 months. And every 3 months, they would come back and renew their licenses. Now, of course, we are doing this for monetary purpose because we want to benefit from the resources. Now, about how much they pay, it depends on the size of the vessel. That's why I am saying I cannot give you those figures now. But we can send that to you to categorizing the different payments for each vessel.
Honorable Member for Serekunda.
Honorable Speaker, would the Honorable Minister indicate the essence of the tonnage of the vessels? Are there any restrictions in terms of the individual vessels' tonnage fishing at sea?
Well, you see, you will see the different vessels that are fishing. And that is how the tonnage is calculated, because we have an observer on board who will normally send us feedback on a daily basis, because this is what we use to charge when they have to pay 10% to us. When the observer gives us the data, it is tabulated and calculated, and then we minus 10% of the catch, and that is what is used for the 10%, either landing or payment. Shrimps is the same concept we use, with small pelagics also. The value of the tonnage normally is an FOB price that we give.
Thank you. Honorable Member for Fonyi Bintang.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Do you have any monitoring mechanism put in place for these vessels?
Oh, yes. We have introduced what is called a transponder. It costs us something, but we are including this in the licensing now. When any vessel we license will have a transponder, and that transponder will tell us wherever you are in our waters. So if you are fishing wrongly, it will tell us. If you are in the right zone, it will tell us. And then, of course, we can communicate and make penalties. But at the moment, we have a better situation now that we can monitor whoever is in our waters.
Thank you. Fonyi Kansala.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want confirmation from the Honorable Minister. These 25 shrimp vessels, do they cut across the country, whether those engaged in fishing activities within the rural areas, are they also registered alongside?
Those in the rural areas, we register them. The rural area is difficult. You must have heard I went on tour. We don't even have the capacity to put our staff to monitor. The Navy do not have the capacity to get their people there to monitor what is happening. Again, it is all foreign based, and it's our local people that are the Njatigis, and so to get an accurate number is very difficult. But as regards the others in the high seas that we have.
Yeah, Honorable Member for Kiang West.
Thank you very much. I just want to ask how many of these vessels are owned by Gambians?
Well, Fishing trawlers, I took a risk and registered one. In fact, I was advised it was not seaworthy, but I wanted to encourage Gambians. Fortunately, no accident happened. He was able to fix it properly now. But otherwise, there is no other Gambian that owns a fishing trawler.
Thank you. Woolly East, and then we'll go.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question is, yes, the transponders may be a good idea, but in terms of illegal fisherfolk, it will be necessary to get a surveillance board. What is the state of the ministry in terms of the surveillance board we have been querying here for all these years? Thank you.
Even the Minister of Finance, I think, mentioned it in his budget speech. We have negotiated with Dam and Shipyard to have 2 fishing trawlers, and I hope when we finalize the agreement, it will be brought here. We want to have a start. Maybe you need more than that, but because we don't have any, we want to start with 2. And hopefully, as we progress, we can increase the numbers, because they are not cheap. But really, we are hoping that by mid-year, we will be able to have 2 of fishing trawlers. See, the importance of fishing trawlers is not only about IUU, it's about the security of the country. And these vessels, if we don't have them, can make a lot of difference for us. Because whether it's migration, whether it's drugs, we don't have the capacity to really get there. So working with the Navy, hopefully, if we have these 2 surveillance boats, it will do different things for this country. And that is why we are hoping we can get 2 initially.
Very much. Honorable members, I want to move over to the next question. Question number 166 of 2018 by the Honorable Member for Lower Salem. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, can the Honorable Minister for Fisheries and Water Resources explain to this August Assembly why the Ministry have still not implemented a water project which was signed to provide clean and potable drinking water to Balangar and Genji cluster in Lower Salem constituency? Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, the Minister of Fisheries, Water Resources is pleased to inform the August Assembly that the Republic of the Gambia has received grants from the African Development Bank to finance the Gambia Climate Smart Rural Water Supply and Sanitation project. I wish to inform the August Assembly that Balangar and Nganji cluster are going to benefit from the project. The drilling of the boreholes is anticipated to commence in the 3rd quarter of 2019, and by 2020, the communities will have access to potable water supply with improved sanitation.
Yes, Lower Salem.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Minister, one time there was a supplementary question that I asked about this water issue. But then the promise that was given to me, September 2018, this project will start, will commence. But still now we are going at the end of the year. And now you are telling me 2019 again, the quarter, you're going to drain this. I want to ask you, when exactly this will happen?
I suppose you know how these agreements are negotiated and etc., etc. Because if this was money that we have in our budget, it's done. But we are negotiating with the ADB. They have a team. They come and ask us questions. They send us consultants. The consultants go. Every time you anticipate, you are almost there. 1 or 2 questions come. Fortunately now, everything has been answered. The agreement has been signed. But we now have to go through normal due process of tendering, and it has to take time. And whoever wins the tender will have to mobilize. And that is why I am giving you this time frame. But at least now we are guaranteed that we've got the resources to do it.
2018 SSP, 2028.
Yeah. Yes.
Woolly East.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Speaking about the ADB project, I want to know how many boreholes the agreement contain, and which part of the country are these boreholes assigned to be located? Thank you.
Well, 145 communities. On the top of my head, I can tell you that we are going to assist 145 communities. You know, the legislation is such that if you don't have the population in your village, we have to cluster them. So that is what we are working on now. I've got those details. Really, we can send it to you. Yes, please, come. You know, I was in your area recently.
Jara Central.
Thank you very much, Ma. Honorable Minister, I think you understand that it's not only Balangar and Genji clusters that need this potable water supply. So I want to ask you, what are you doing for Jara Central community also? Thank you.
Well, I wish I anticipated this question. You know, I said 145 communities. And I think the length and breadth of the country, we will divide in such a way that each area will have something. And that is going to happen. What we really need to do, and I keep on saying this, you must provide money, Gambian money, to dig these boreholes. This year I insisted with my colleagues that we must put 2 million. 2 million cannot even do one. Because when you want to put it, a proper one with the tank and the toilet, you don't have that kind of money. But Gambia must learn to try to do things for ourselves, rather than just all the time relying on our partners to do things for us. It's for us to really begin to say, what can we do? And of course, this comes with a lot of challenges. Because you go to some communities, you give them a borehole. Some communities, they showed me their account. Some have got 500,000, some 300,000, but some have got 12,000, some have got... So the community must be able to and willing now to begin to pay for water. In some communities, they're only charging $5 per compound, and they're saving a lot of money. We must encourage our people to understand that water is not cheap, and it should not be free. So that they begin to contribute however little. Because we give you a borehole, we insure it for 5 years. After the end of 5 years, if there is any problem, it should be the responsibility of the community. So if they are not putting anything aside for that rainy day, then it becomes a problem when the borehole has a problem. So we really need to educate ourselves. I think hopefully we are trying as a ministry, we will come up with a campaign to really educate our people. And there are other Gambians here, I'm sure, who will be able to offer to dig 1 or 2 boreholes. We have not asked them. We will begin to have a campaign and definitely engage our Gambian compatriots to help themselves and help our country.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Question number, excuse me, question number 167 of 2018 by the Honorable Member for Kantora. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving me the floor. I think we did agree that because it's more of concerning two-country issue, so we'll take it out of Parliament and then me and him will engage ourselves. Probably maybe for the purpose of record. I will just read and then, yeah. Honorable Speaker, can the Honorable Minister for Fisheries and Water Resources inform this August Assembly on the current developments with regard to the river closure between the Senegal and Gambia around the URR region?
Honorable Speaker, I wish to inform this August Assembly that the issue of closure of the river between the Gambia and Senegal have not reached my office. My technicians at the Department of Water Resources have also informed me that they are not yet aware of such a closure.
Closure just made. May I now proceed to question number 168 of 2018 by the Honorable Member for Banjul North.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, fishing trawlers in our waters land their catch in Dakar, Senegal, due to lack of capacity for storage in the Gambia amid scarcity of fish for consumption often experienced in our local markets. Would the Minister for Fisheries and Water Resources inform this August Assembly how much has this generated in terms of revenue to government?
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Member of Banjul North is right in saying that licensed fishing trawlers allowed to fish in Gambian waters land their catches in Dakar, Senegal, due to lack of capacity for storage. As a ministry, we are cognizant of this fact, and for that matter, my ministry is instituting an administrative measure whereby these vessels pay the value of 10% of their catch to government. Total revenue generated from the payment of 10% of the value of the catches from January to date is 46,846,000. But I am just told by my permanent secretary that this figure has gone to 61 million already.
Thank you. Yes, Banjul North.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Would the Honorable Minister also tell us whether the government is also thinking along the lines of looking for support to have storage facilities so that there will be more income for the country, rather than just asking them to pay 10%?
Honorable Speaker, that is really part of our strategy. We have already engaged with some people to help us, because storage, one, is the big problem, and this is highly perishable. So we are looking at the possibility of engaging with other friendly governments to help us. Fortunately, too, there are other Gambians that are looking at the possibility of having storage in all our landing sites. If we have the storage capacity, then processing begins. But because you don't have storage facility, it's not economical for anybody who have his fish to come and land it here, because you don't have anywhere to put. But this is the concern that we must all have. How do we get people, both partners and private sector? Unfortunately, it takes a long time to negotiate some of this agreement. When you talk to a partner and they say yes, like we have done, it may take 18 months, 2 years before it begins to materialize, because it all is linked with a budget and allocation that have been done for the year. But we are really trying to have enough storage in the country. And I am praying for that to happen, because then you are going to create more jobs. Then you are going to have value added. So it is our hope that we will hopefully next year, have some storage capacity that we are beginning now to offload here in Gambia, put it in our processing plants, and then, of course, create more jobs and get more revenue, even foreign exchange for the country. But this is part of our strategy at the Ministry.
Nominated member, Honorable Jaite.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, I still just want to understand why you earlier stated that the Senegal-Gambia agreement is not new, and why this agreement is yet to come to Parliament. Secondly, I just want to ask, was there anything in the last budget providing for the creation of more storage facilities, if this is the problem why we do not have fish in the country? Thank you.
No, the agreement is not new, like I said earlier. We found the Senegal-Gambia agreement there already when we came in. So we are just continuing. What is new is the elements that we have put in about capacity building, about education, about 10% and 4 tons. That is new. That was not part of the agreement. Now, as far as budget allocation is concerned, like I said earlier, we believe government is not a good business person. And I don't know whether you will approve for us to build storage. It's better that we leave the private sector to do that, because they will charge properly, they will manage it efficiently. But unfortunately, you all know about how we overemploy when we have a government concern. And that is why I, for one, personally, in my experience, I don't want government to be involved in that kind of business. I would really want to leave it with the private sector.
Honorable Member for Serekunda.
Honorable Speaker, is it not a part of the National Development Plan to reposition the fisheries sector so that what it lacks now would actually be built, not just by expectation, but concrete plan, time-bound plan to provide this facility? Wouldn't the minister agree that this is the way to handle the returnee problem, by negotiating using this agreement that we have signed with the EU so that they retain the citizens there, train them in this area so that when they return they will find work prepared for them in this sector? Wouldn't that be the best approach? And if so, is that the approach that the ministry is taking?
I agree with the honorable member. Unfortunately, the best approach is not always applied. I am a social worker by background. I am used to looking at my strategic plan, time frame, time bound. Government is not like that, unfortunately. You get frustrated if you have done that before. I've done that work before, and I come to government, I see how slow the machinery is. It's not my job to do that work. I am there for policy. But if I don't have the capacity, the people that will help me to do that, I always talk, let us unpack our NDP section for the fisheries. If we unpack it properly, we are able to get the partners to help us. But as at now, we have not really completed unpacking. You have two strategies that needs to be unpacked and specific. If we unpack it and specify what we need to do, put a time frame, I agree with you, that's the best. With youth unemployment, is a problem that we need to fix. And I think fisheries, I hear me always, I will say it again, we can do better than tourism for this country. It's only that we put the strategy on the table and concentrate on making this possible. But that is not happening yet because of when we came there were no people to do this work. And we are hoping we will get the capacity to do it. I am always pressing my permanent secretary every time, let us finalize unpacking the two strategies so that we can even get other people involved. I believe that there are some Gambians that can get involved in certain things. But maybe they have not been invited yet. It is time that we begin to engage with them and create jobs. Because jobs are very important for our young people, and we all lament the same problem every time. They want to go out because they don't have jobs. We need to create those jobs in the Gambia for them.
Minister, I would now like to move over to question number 169 of 2018 by the Honorable Member for Janjambure.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, can the Honorable Minister for Fisheries and Water Resources tell this August Assembly the whereabouts of the two fishing trawlers given to the Gambia government by Islamic Republic of Iran?
Honorable Speaker, please allow me to rectify the Honorable Member of Janjambure constituency that the donation to the Gambia by the Islamic Republic of Iran was only one fishing vessel, which was called Lava 3. This vessel broke down beyond repairs and eventually sank at the position, posing serious environmental and safety threats to access the Banjul port. Consequently, my ministry, in consultation with the Gambia Port Authority, and advised the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs through the committee responsible for disposing of government assets to dispose of the vessel through procedure appropriate for the purpose. Honorable Speaker, I wish to further inform this August Assembly that the vessel was sold to scrap metal dealers to the tune of $1,250,000.
Supplementary.
Yeah, actually, this is not a question, but I just want to inform the minister that I was at the Department of Water Resources. I'm not too sure now whether it's Iraq or Iran, but I remember one of these countries donated 2 trawlers to fisheries. I was there myself at the inauguration. It's not a question.
I don't know whether I can say anything about that. I was not there. What I can give you is what I know. And what I'm talking about is really what is in our books.
Member for Bakau.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. For the purpose of transparency, could the Honorable Minister provide this House the document as to how this vessel was sold to scrap metal dealers to a tune of $1,250,000?
Well, I think tenders were invited. It was not done by us. It was done by the Minister of Finance Tender Committee. Tenders were invited, and they evaluated the bids, and I think they gave it to the highest bidder. But documents are there to prove that, because the tender board will have their minutes and everything. We are interested in the money. The money has been paid to port. It has not reached us yet. But I know that they followed due process to have it done.
Honorable Speaker, would the Minister conduct further inquiry into this particular issue?
Yes, actually I will challenge my colleagues as soon as I get out of here, because if he was there when we got to, definitely we should be able to account for it. And we will do our best, and if we find the right answer, we can send it back.
Oh, sorry. I will withdraw my question because it's the same as the one asked by Serekunda. Thank you.
No? Okay, then thank you very much. May I thank
I want to thank you and to wish
Minister.
everybody a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, and also thank honorable members. I think this is a convenient point for us to go for a short break and then come back by 3:45. So we suspend the sitting for about 45 minutes. Go for a break and come back. Thank you. So the assembly stands suspended.